what is that movie called? I cannot recall off the top of my head. Sorry, TikTok, you're going to pause for just a second. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started, I promise. Just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page so we can pop this recording on real quick. And then I got to give somebody there. It is called Trading Places. Okay. What was the name of that one that they did with the girl, that the Disney girl or whatever, that ended up wilding out when she was older than Lindsay Lohan? Is that called Trading Places too, or something? Whatever it was, but yeah, Trading Places. If that's the one with I'm looking for the one with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. So Trading Places. We're gonna be on some Trading Places type stuff today. Show what these cats is out here doing. I'm still trying to figure out, Big Brother Thomas, how to introduce what you gave to us. Because this, you sent me down a rabbit hole, Big Brother Thomas. If you don't know, you sent me down a rabbit hole that I'm like, whoo, I'm learning stuff that I didn't even know exist. So I'm gonna get back to you on something. I'm gonna send you some stuff that'll probably be that, and who knows, because you sent me down that rabbit hole. Maybe you already been to some of the stuff I'm gonna send you, but that's stuff that you sent me, something else. Anyways, I'm waiting for one more device to get up, and then we can go ahead and get started. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and start. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect. Today's message, Aman. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao. Namaste. Wasai Enikituya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, Wagwan. Ciao. Aloha. Kamsa. Kamsamida. Habarigani. Akwa Aba. Madaasi. Itise. Jambu. Mimi ni Kofi ni Nafra Kukutana no Wewe. Boker Tov. Boker Tab. Grand Rising. Bakwatav. Barakalat Sham Yahava, Anai Kofi, Kualit the Servants of Christ, Mashalam Chi. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, of being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We give all honor and praise to the Most High, Yahava Elohim. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you all for being on so much. We appreciate you. Appreciate you. To the moderators, ministerial staff, like that, and everybody. If it's your first time, one time, a minute, whatever the case might be, prayerfully you enjoy yourself today. Today is our community day. So we ask every first Friday of every month that if you can, please go out into the community and be a blessing to somebody in the community, in the diaspora, your family, whoever the Most High calls you to. Do a little something extra, do some first fruit type stuff. And also, too, at the end of today, we will make sure that we are at the end of today's. We will stop and make sure that we have enough time to switch over, so that by about 11 or so, hopefully at 11. If it's a little later, I'll try to even change the Google Calendar invite. Maybe you want to come on about 11:15ish or so, but a little after 11, look for us. You can look for on my screen if you're on TikTok for it to be blinking to see if it'll go live for you, or if you want to look somewhere else. You can look if you have Prophet Yomi's information, but look for us on TikTok. We'll be over there again for today. Possibility of on Saturday, but more than likely not. If I am on Saturday, it'll be very short, since we have all our stuff going on that we normally do. And of course, we have our SOC community meeting. But prayerfully, all is well with everybody, and everybody can recall all that. Brothers, don't forget. Also, too, tomorrow we will have our men's meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. We'll get back on track on that. And as a reminder for people, if you have been trying to, if you have been obedient, and I see a lot of you have, and you've been filling out forms and information and stuff like that for us, or you've been doing the shout out with us at the very end, and you've been giving us your information, and I have not contacted you yet, it is primarily due to the fact that some of your stuff is so similar to other people that are on TikTok, that it's hard to find your information. And some of you, are private, or when you have not friended us. So if I try to send you a message, it's very limited what I can send. So I will try to double check and triple check behind those. But if you can, just keep putting your stuff in the shout out at the end. I promise you somebody will get back to you ASAP. Prayerfully, myself and the ministerial staff will. as soon as we can. All right. But we're going to go ahead and say our Bible pledge, and we're going to get right into it. So I'm going to start off by playing a video for us, and then I've got to give this device back that I'm using. So I've been allowed, as you can see, I'm allowed to use uh, my wife's device. So because I need something extra to make sure that today you guys can hear this. So I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to immediately go back in and give her her device back. But I use this so we could have something to listen to. This is, by the way, let me plug this group. And once again, I put this already on Patreon for you. So if you'd like to, if you're a Patreon member, you already have the link. I actually was going through Facebook and saw this on Minister Yasav's Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook and you're a friend of Minister Yasav Rogers, or even a friend of mine, and you want to look for it on Yasav Rogers' page, or maybe I'll just share it to make sure everybody has it. But go there and you can watch the video there as well. But if you're on Patreon, we already put that there, and I already put I put some Wikipedia stuff up there for you to be able to study, so you can see it for yourself and not be like, oh, here's somebody, I'm just making up stuff, or somebody says where you get this from, or the past doesn't matter type stuff or whatever, and you can read for yourself and make sure that you're on board with it for yourself. Okay, but we're going to listen to this in a second. Before we do, let me just say hello, everybody, and then we'll say our Bible pledge, and we'll jump right in. How you doing, everybody? How you doing, Beck, Minister Stephen, Minister Samela Ray, Sister Renee, Sister Monica, Nicole, Samaj versus Leonard Jr., Yehuda, Brother Kayvon, Chantel, Bruda. Been living in Japan for 20 years. Okay, how you doing, DJ? King D252. I was just actually watching some stuff on Japan about the Shinto religion, so to speak, even though it's not exactly what people think. Interesting. How you doing, Sister Sheila, Sister Teresa, Big Brother Thomas, Wavy Davy, JP, everybody. Hola, mi hermana Sherry, ¿cómo está? How you doing? Is Not Happening B, right? How you doing, Sean? I think Sean was the first person on. How you doing? Hello, praise Yah. Thanks for the love. How you doing, Rosemary? Everybody, appreciate you. Minister Anais, appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. So, okay, so we're going to say our Bible pledge, and then we're going to listen to this video, and we're going to get started. And we're going to talk about something that I think is going to, I don't know if it'll necessarily shock you at this point, but it's something that should get your attention. Even if you've heard it before, the way that we're led to go in it, I believe this should definitely get your attention. So let's go ahead and start. We'll say our Bible pledge. If you just want to repeat after me, if you're able to put your right hand in the air, your device, etc., and or your Bible, and if you are if you're able to reverence the word of Yah in any kind of way, including if you're able to stand, we ask that you do so. Please be safe. Or if you're at your job or whatever the case might be, make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. All right. How you doing, Opal? Shalom. All right, here we go. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahashua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Atsham Yahweh. Aman. Or in Yahweh's name, amen. All right. And we know that the word of Yah was already blessed for the people of Yah. Let's listen to this. And prayerfully, this will be loud enough. If it's not, maybe I'll play it a couple times, but I do have to get this device back inside. So hopefully this will be loud enough. Actually, I'm going to do this. Let's do this. I'm going to play another video real quick to start. Can tell me if you guys can hear this.
In their behavior.
It might be low, but can you hear it?
The left is hungry. The one on the right, with the food in his cage, is satiated. How will this difference in drive affect their... In order to see whether
you can hear it? Okay, cool. And how you doing, Sister Monica? All right, okay, I'm going to put on the video then. All right, how you doing, Mr. Spaceman? All right. This is, by the way, coming from Everything Channel. Let me just go ahead and plug them since we're using stuff that they posted. All right, Everything Channel. It's backwards on... I'm sorry, it's backwards on TikTok. Let me flip this real quick. All right, so this is coming from Everything Channel, all right, which has actually got some great stuff on there, period. Right, so if you want to go look this up, you can. Feel free to. All right, let me just go ahead Once again, if you're on Patreon, it's already posted. The link for this is already posted, and we already posted the information going on there. So if you're on Patreon, I already put this up. Oh wow, sorry. So if you're on Patreon with this, I already posted the stuff for you that we're going to be listening to, and I posted some stuff for you to read to go along with it and see how they try to change some things up to make you, and it's actually a little deeper than what you think it is. Okay. All right, but we're gonna go ahead and listen to it here. So now that we got everybody on the same page, everybody saw, right? And by the way, I'm sorry, I think I said that. No, I might not have said this yet. Feel free. I'll give you about. I'm gonna go ahead and take a drink of water after I say this. Feel free if you want to screen record this. Okay, if you're able to screen record this, or if you're going to go to YouTube, if you're on YouTube, this is going to be starting at about the 11-minute mark. If you want to go and look there, or if you're on TikTok and you watch this later on YouTube, look for about the 11-minute mark. If you're on Patreon and stuff, we already have this stuff listed once again. Okay, how you doing, Eccentric Faith? Okay, so I want everybody to. So if you want to screen record, or if you want to go to the 11-minute mark on YouTube, or if you want to go to the 11-minute mark on the recording, or if you're on the podcast, go to about the 9-minute mark on the podcast, and you should be able to listen to this part. All right. All right, we're trying to give you the game. Don't miss this. All right. How you doing, Lady K? All right, you ready? Everybody ready? How you doing, Georgia Explorers? How you doing, DB? If I didn't say so already. All right, here we go. Let's listen. All right. Since it's loud enough, we'll listen to it one time. It's 5.5 minutes long. By the way, it does have curse words in it. So I know some of you are heavy in guarding your gates. So it does have curse words in it if you feel like you can't listen to this because there's cursing, okay? But the information is in fact relevant. All right, you ready? Here we go.
Something called the Tyron maze rat experiment. Y'all need to look that up. It's called the Tyron's maze rat experiment. It went down in 1940. He ended up getting it from another psychiatrist in 1840. It's called the Tyron maze rat experiment. And what they did was they took a few hundred rats, right? And they splitted them and they divided them. And what they did was they created an environment for both of these rats to live in. In one subject, they took about 100 rats and they put it in an environment where it had clean water. They put it in an environment where it had a right amount of space for the rats can, get, basically if they wanted to be by themselves, they could. They made sure that it was good food in there that didn't have any type of poisons put inside the foods. They even gave them space to breathe, to go upstairs, downstairs. They just gave them this abundant environment, right? They put these rats in there. Mind you, these the same rats with the same genetical molecular structure, with nothing different. They both came from the same mama, the same daddy, the same family tree, right? So they took these rats, they put one in a good environment, then they put the other 100 rats in a bad environment where they didn't get water. If they did get water, the water actually had acids in it. They made sure they didn't give them the regular food. I think they gave them like cat food or something like that with a bunch of pellets that was inside of them, right? They stuck them on top of each other and they made sure that the space was very, very small. They never cleaned any poop out of the maze. They pissed out of the maze and they left them in there. They left them in there for 4 months and they watched how their behavior changed. They went back and they got the actual rats that came from the good environment and they put them in the maze. They ended up going through the maze very, very fast. Then they ended up going to get the rats that they put in the bad environment and put them in the maze, and they didn't know how to even make it through the first section of the maze. So he maybe this is a coincidence. So he did it. So what he did was he switched the rats. He took the rats that was smart, that made it through the maze, that was in the good environment, and he put them in the bad environment. Then he that was in a bad environment, that was dummies that couldn't make it through the maze at all, and he put them in a good environment. He waited 4 months, then he took them back out. The same rats that was good and smart, that was in a good environment, that he put in a bad environment, now they couldn't make it through the maze. The same rats that was in the bad environments, that was dummies that couldn't make it through the maze, he put them in a good environment. Now they making it through the maze and making it through life just fine. So he said, damn, it ain't the genetics. It ain't who these people is as individuals. It's the community. It's the environment that you put these biological entities in that changes the way they interact with the environment and with themselves. Did you know he did another 6-month experiment on the same rats that he left in the bad environment? Guess what they started doing? Killing each other. Some of the male rats started humping other male rats. Homosexuality. Look, the other rats that was at the bottom that didn't have the food, these niggas went upstairs to the other rats and started robbing them for food and water. I said, damn, this sound like your typical project. Don't this sound like the PJs? This is a real rat experiment. So it made me start questioning. I had to sit back and really rub my chin. They turned into robbing rats? They turned into robbing, homosexual. What else are you gonna do? Rats. It's a survival mechanism at this point. Now check this out though, guys. It was a selective group of female rats, and I really want y'all to look this up when y'all get home today. Watch this. It will fuck your mind up. The female rats, they started pampering themselves. They used to let their children just do what the fuck ever. They started pampering themselves. All they was worried about hood rats. Which one these? See, these was the hood rats. Okay. The hood rats, right? Exactly. So the hood rats, I'm gonna quote that. The hood rats, all they did was pamper themselves. The only thing that they worried about was their fur. They worried about their weight. They didn't worry about their children anymore. They worried about the mama papa rat. The only thing that they focused on was their actual cells. And then the father rat started going to other different parts of the actual rat experiment cage and started like bullying on the younger children. It was crazy, man. Look, it gets so deep when you really start watching it. It even rapists started happening. Rape with the older male rats in the community started raping the younger males and the younger female rats. Same thing that happens in the ghetto where a young girl will get touched on by their uncle, or a young male will get touched on by their uncle or their auntie. This happens. So it's like, damn, is this rat experiment that's going on in Tyron, rat maze experiments, the same shit that's going on with us in these communities? And then you have to ask yourself, in the projects. Right. And who built these communities? We didn't build these communities. We ain't put the liquor stores in these communities. We ain't put dope in there. You got something called Russian AK-47s. Niggas ain't never been to Russia. You got Japanese SKs. We ain't never been to Japan. We got grenades that come from. We got all these different things in the community of America that's outside of America when niggas ain't never left the block. How was they getting there? This shit was set up. So once I realized, like, damn, me and my people is in a rat maze. This is a project. We are being psychologically experimented on. That's when I said, okay, this is my motivation. Okay. It's time to break the psychological chains of my people. Yep. So once I fully got myself up out of it, my whole mission is I'm going to die for this shit. Everybody that I come in contact with is going to hear this message. And my message is, wake the fuck up, Black America.
All right. Once again, that's on Everything channel. Literally everything. T, capitalized T on thing. Everything channel. Go there if you get an opportunity to. Excellent stuff on there besides just this. But it's called Everything channel. It's called, and today we're talking about Tyron maze rat experiment, or we're just going to call it the Tyron rat race experiment, right? Because you ever heard that term, rat race? Right? There's rat race because you're trying to get them through the maze. Sorry, excuse me. So that's what we're going to be talking about and focusing on today. Amen. That's what we're going to be focusing on and talking about today. All right. So give me 1 second. I'm going to take this device back that somebody allowed me to use. Praise God. And then I'll be right back in front of you. But once again, as we get ready to get into the conversation for today, we're going to talk about Tyron's rat race experiment, or if you want to go by the official title, I guess the Tyron maze rat experiment. And by the way, it's actually, his name is almost spelled like Tyrone. So if you're wondering, Tyron. I'll be right back. Alrighty. So I wanted to make sure you guys heard it. I could have just talked about it, but I felt it was better if you guys heard it. So those you were able to hear, prayerfully you were able to hear it and see exactly kind of where we're headed for today in our conversation. And not something that's just made up. Once again, it's I will try to share this. I got this off of Minister Yasav's Facebook page. He shared it on Facebook yesterday. I said, oh yeah, we definitely talking about this. Prayed about it, of course, but I was actually searching. I didn't know exactly what we were going to talk about today, and I saw that. I said, "Oh, that's it right there." And then Holy Spirit verified, and so we talked about this. So we're going to talk about this some today. And once again, it's called the title of our conversation is Tyron's rat race experiment. Okay, and it's spelled Tyron. This is an experiment that I believe in the video he says the 1840s, but when you look it up online, you'll discover it's in the 1940s. So I believe it could be possible that I'm wrong, that maybe we're talking about two different things, because when I looked it up online, it is probably just because of how they try to change stuff up. So we're not really hip to stuff, because if you look this up online, if you look this up on Wikipedia, once again on Patreon members, y'all look, I already put this stuff on there for you guys to look and everything. Look up and everything. But if you look this up online, the first thing, and really one of the only things, unless you really do a deep dive and read up on it, right? Maybe get a book on it and stuff like that as well. The only stuff that and by the way, this is just mosquito coils, right? Even though I could care less if it was what some people probably would think it is, but we just use mosquito coils so I don't get tore up out here. But one of the things that was really crucial to me was that when you look this up, you'll discover that this Dr. Tyron, or whoever it is, 1940s is correct. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I found when I was looking the stuff up. I started reading. And when you look up what he did, he actually did this where he tried to make it look like it was white versus black. He actually tried to use darker or white or blacker rats for the negative part of the experiment, and lighter rats for the lighter part. And when you read up, I think it's when you read up on Wikipedia, I'm not sure, I believe it's when you read up on Wikipedia, you will discover real quick that it starts off by saying that before he started this experiment, it was already well known in scientific circles. It was already well known that environment has a lot to do with how your people act. And we often have to go through this. We kind of have to start here and kind of set proper foundation. How you doing, Mrs. Greer? How you doing, Ethelred? How you doing, Miss Q? How you doing, Byron? Everybody, from Miss Your Name on any of these platforms, charges to my head, not to my heart. How you doing, Big Bad Wolf? Everybody, Bold Servant, everybody. So it's very interesting that we always think this stuff is like brand new. Like we think that people thinking that so-called black people are Israelites is new, when people tried to use that to give black people reparations in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, meaning that this is not a new phenomenon, so to speak, right? Or we'll think, oh, this is new, that people are starting to get into the Apocrypha. And if you were in the Roman Catholic Church, especially if you went to school, you were part of the Roman Catholic Church, where you've been using the Apocrypha for a long time, right? Or people will believe like, oh, okay, this is new, that people are just realizing how crazy it is, and to say that if you are from somewhere that you're not, to say that that's you, to say that you can discover somebody's land. And the reality is that the doctrine of discovery has been around since 1452 and was made official in 1493 after Christopher Columbus went looking for Negroes when he sailed the ocean blue. Right. Yeah, but we're always taught that this stuff is like some new phenomenon or nobody knew or whatever. But this starts off when you really start going through this rabbit hole, and we're just starting at the top of it, right? But when you start going down this rabbit hole, not just listening to it, right? But then you start doing some research. First thing that you come upon is that it was known that your environment. Now, why is that something that's your environment can bless you or jack you up? Why is that so important when we talk about this? Well, because if then he made his experiment to then put the white lab the white lab rats. I don't know why this a tongue twister for me. The white lab rats. He made it a point to put them in a clean environment, knowing this is the case, and then put the dark or black lab rats in an unclean environment. Matter of fact, he didn't even call them black, he called them dull. Purposefully. They're not called, when you read about it, it's not going to say these are dark lab rats, these are black lab rats. They actually use the term dull. So they say the white lab rat, and then they say the dull, meaning that the white lab rat, the smart one, the one that you should see has the ability to get past the stuff, and they put him in a great position to start. That in and of itself should tell you something, right? Something that culturally keeps going on. Now, I know some people are like, oh, well, this is the word of God, and we're talking about this and that, blah, blah. Yes, but we have to be honest. Can we be honest today? Can we have honest dialogue? Anybody who knows us and anybody who knows me, anybody who's been around this for quite some time, right? And anybody who wants to check my resume on this, so to speak, feel free to. You know that we are not here to bash people because of the color of their skin. Matter of fact, colorism of any kind is something that we should make sure we realize is atrocious and was put placed not by us, but by others. Because the first chance there was for colorism, it was squashed by Methuselah, if you know your word, right? So in our culture, in our community, in our family tree, we don't really have time for that. We know that many of us were darker and looked Kemetic, but it doesn't mean that if somebody came out and they were lighter, or if somebody came and was grafted in from another culture and was not quite as dark, or maybe even was extremely light skinned, it doesn't mean that we hated them on sight. Matter of fact, if that were the case, you wouldn't have had a lot of stuff that happened to Africa and to South America and a lot of places where people who didn't look like us came in and did things to us, because we wouldn't have allowed for that to happen if it was just we don't like you just because you're so-called white. How you doing, Sister Deborah? So we don't preach that, we don't teach that, we don't believe in that. But today we will talk about what you declare to be race today, although race means a competition, and the only reason you think of race being a color is because the competition has been what? Warped. The rat race has been fixed. It has been shown that the white rat is going to be put in the better environment, the dull rat is going to be put in the worst environment, and then we're going to go ahead and tell you that the fairer rat, the fair skinned, the fair furred rat, the fair, right? We're going to say that that's something that goes ahead and meets our criteria. It's important that we talk about this and all the things that we talk about. Every once in a while, we have to be real about what's going on in society, because also too, as much as we don't mind realizing that we come in shapes and sizes, there are certain looks that an Israelite will have if we're talking about just physically. Right? There might be many people grafted in, but ultimately certain things will come to the surface every time. There's certain things that no matter how mixed race your child is, right? That term mixed race, no matter how mixed race, there's certain things that your child will go through just because they will be able to see negroid features. And I'm not making up this term. This is a term that's used scientifically quite often in his story. I didn't come up with the term. We didn't come up with the term. Someone else did, to let you know that they see you. That one drop rule, that one drop of black blood rule, right? That Willie Lynch thing where we need to put as much righteous blood in these slaves so that they'll start separating themselves, and we can make the ones that are lighter be the ones that we can use in smarter areas. Even terms, by the way, that people don't recognize, like highbrow and lowbrow. Do you know where those terms come from? Right, and we pretend it doesn't exist, right, Sister Shima? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? How you doing, Tanisha? How you doing, Demetria? Everybody coming in. If I missed anybody in here, please forgive me. Right? Even terms like lowbrow and highbrow. Are you aware where those terms come from? If something is lowbrow or highbrow, in your mind, you think highbrow is what? Is smart, right? And lowbrow is not. But what does that mean? What does a brow have to do with how smart you are? How you doing, Sister Iska? What does a brow have to do with that? We don't even think about it. That was something that happened specifically, it was something that really they put in place with Native Americans, but they also put in with those indigenous to Africa, where a lot of so-called white people, they had more of a condition of losing their hair. They'll tell you it's genetic and this and that or whatever, but a lot of it had to do with they didn't eat correctly, and they didn't know how to do certain things to protect themselves, and even sometimes the fact that their hair and their scalp, especially when they were going certain places that they were spreading out to, they didn't know how to deal with the sun. A lot of different factors, right? Could be a little bit of genetics in there or whatever, but a lot of their stuff comes from eugenics. You always got to be careful when they start talking genetics. So what happens is a lot of them, because of their habits and because of what they did and because of even hygiene, yes, they start losing their hair. So when they start losing their hair, what happens? the brow goes back, right? They start to have, a lot of times, not always, sometimes you got the, little, whatever you call, I don't know, you got the patch back here, or sometimes you got but usually a lot of times for a lot of them, you would see them start to lose here and they go back here and they go back this way, right? So the brow, what they call the brow, right? They said it's your brow, because remember, this is the eyebrow, right? These eyelashes, your eyebrows, but the brow. So there's an eyebrow, but then there's a brow. A lot of people don't recognize this. So there's the eyes, the eyelash, the eyebrow, and then there's the brow, right? And a lot of people just use where you start your shape up, right? You think of that that's actually kind of looked at as the brow. But if you're highbrow, it meant that your brow went back. So as they got older, and a lot of times, even when they got to their 20s, their late teens, they were already starting to deal with hair loss. So when they dealt with the hair loss, what they said is, okay, hey, we're highbrow, and everybody they come into contact with that was indigenous, they were lowbrow. How you doing, Brother Alex? Right? So they were like, everybody else is highbrow, and you're lowbrow, right? And so they would say, but they needed to make sure that they were smarter than you. Everything had to be about being greater than you. Everything had to be fixed so that you would think of being greater. Just like fair, what is fair skin? Fair is supposed to be, if we do something in business and we both are doing stuff according to business, then we should be doing something that's what? Fair. But that's not what was presented, right? When you learned about fair, a lot of us learned about fair. A lot of us had to learn almost immediately after we learned that fair was supposed to be, all right, we're supposed to have some kind of what we might call equality in this, or at least what is great for one is great for the other. We started there was fair skin, there was fair hair, there was fair color, right? And so we automatically went into this communal situation with a community that wasn't for us and about us at all, and we started thinking these things. Well, as far as if you heard the term highbrow and you thought, oh, okay, highbrow, and you didn't even comprehend it, the person losing their hair was the person who was taking over. And so since they were taking over and had tricked you to giving them the leeway to take over, they started teaching you different ways of even using their own language. Willie Lynch explains that in his own letter. And so when they did this, it was about what? Highbrow. Highbrow was one of the things that was introduced, right, to say that those who are losing their hair are smarter. So when they came across indigenous Americans, they would say, oh, okay, you have a low brow, we have a highbrow. So the highbrow person is smarter just because he's lost his hair, right? Now, we wouldn't think about it that way because we don't necessarily dig in and we don't see where some of this stuff comes from. But ultimately, that's what it was set up was, hey, we're losing our hair. They are not. We need to make sure everything is used to say that we're greater. Okay, cool. We'll say that they're low brown, we're high brown. And so now you even have some of their children who weren't losing their hair, hoping and praying for the day that they would lose their hair because they would be distinguished. Why? Because they'd be high brown, right? you know when the reality is it's mineral deficiency, and it's simply that. I don't speak ill of anybody for losing your hair. I'm just saying it's mineral deficiency ultimately. Sorry, you said so when they say the Messiah had straight brow as was Hebrew custom, they mean his hairline. Yeah, if that's what they're if they're talking about that, or even if you look at Flavius Josephus writings on the stuff or whatever. But yeah, like Yehoshua was somebody that we don't know if he would have been locked up, but he would have had long hair. He had a Nazarite vow. He would have been a Nazarene. And so there's certain things, certain laws, certain principles in his culture, this community where he came from. Not just him, but Samson. He talks about locks. We have a lot of different things that show you. Flavius Josephus is somebody who was captured after not a stone was left upon a stone. He was a general who became a slave, who became Vespasian, one of the emperors. He became a Vespasian slave, and so he writes out a lot of stuff you even know about Caligula and others. It comes from his writings. When it comes to him being an Israelite and talking about Israel, they say throw all that stuff to the side. But when it comes to everything he wrote about Rome, they say listen to it entirely. Although he'll tell you in his book back then that was something the Romans had started because they didn't want Israel to get any credit for anything, and the Israelites had just been captured, and they're barbarians. Remember, barbarians doesn't mean that you're even slow or stupid or dumb. Barbarian means bar, which is a way of saying blah 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 blah. So just like you say, oh man, I came across it. You know how them cats be? They be talking blah 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 blah. Well, back then the Romans, if you didn't speak basically certain Roman languages, but mainly if you didn't speak Greek and Latin, They were like, oh, okay, you're a barbarian. Everything you say is blah, 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 blah. So everybody who did that was a barbarian to a Roman. If you didn't speak what they wanted you to speak, you were barbaric, right? That's the way. So we have even a bad mindset on barbarism, if you will. But a barbarian doesn't mean they were stupid, dumb, or slow necessarily. It means that Romans said we ain't got no time for how you speak, right? It's still on some eugenics type stuff, kind of, sort of. It hasn't. We can't, right? Maybe we can't say quite eugenics, but it's definitely some racism. But that's why we have to be careful, because even Romans and a lot of people that we automatically assume are white, we forget that the further back we go into the story of mankind, the darker everybody gets. Look at the emperors. Look at Justinian's. Justinian, Theodore from the 500s, right? Look at them. That's 500 years after Vespasian. Look at the color they are, right? Justinian, he's dark. Look at the even look past that, past what we're talking about. Look at the Greeks and look at the Spartans. The Spartans now, they're starting to, especially people who draw them out. You're starting to see the Spartans are always looking dark skinned. Why? Because King Leonidas, he had locks. He was dark skinned. Alexander the Great of Philip Macedonia, his father was considered to be swarthy or dark skinned, which means that Alexander the Great more than likely would have looked mixed, to say the least. That's assuming his mother was white, or what we call white. If they're right, this we keep going off of stuff that we were shown in school, right? But not necessarily what we should have been schooled on. How you doing? Into the Deep. How you doing, Minister Shante? So when we talk about this stuff, we got to get to a place in this Tyron's rat race experiment. We have to realize that there's a lot of stuff that was done on purpose. First things first is you have to once again recognize that they'll tell you that by 1942, it was already recognized, right? It was already recognized. Well, even you have Hellenistic Jews too, right? So even that was a thing where there were Jews and then Hellenistic Jews, right? So we can already see that's taking place. As some of the stuff we talk about, Ashkenazi, this, that, etc. There were Jews and Hellenistic Jews. People don't want to talk about that. Or Sephardic Jews versus Ashkenazi and Khazarian Jews. Or where's Khazaria at? Right? Whereas Ashkenazi, what family did that come through even in your Bible? It's not Shemitic. It's not Semitic. Okay? But I'll leave that there for now. So they know in this rat race that we're going to be talking about today and focusing on, right? And how you doing, Yas, my God? They knew in this rat race in 1942. And when? They knew in 1942, it was already known that the environment that you put anything in is going to ultimately set it on course for what that person or what that animal will do in the future. Even if you're talking about an inanimate object, if I put wood in the water, the environment means that the wood's not going to be that great after a while. If I put iron in the water, after a while, give it enough years, it will fall apart, right? Put something put a sub. We know this from recent times. Put a sub, no matter how well it works. Put a sub in deep enough water, and it will be crushed. The environment you put anything in is going to help determine the outcome. And so when I'm doing that, I'm already separating it, having that knowledge, and I'm already putting the white lab rat in a favorable position, and then I'm putting the dull. Once again, they didn't even call it black or gray or any of that. They called it the dull lab rat in a certain position. I'm going to have a problem already. I'm already creating a place, right? What's that word even that it used to be? See, this is why you have to look at all these things that are scientific. Where did they come from? And why is it that we still have stuff, for example, where it says that black women don't feel pain? It's still in the nursing books. Those who take nursing right now, a lot of your nursing books say that black women don't feel pain. Where does that come from? This is not new. This is a continued mindset. How you doing, Forever Young? And I think I said hello, Warren. And is it 1 out of 9 Etsy.com? All right. Hello. Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, G-Cell? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Sister Tanisha? Right? So we have to be in a place where we recognize this was done purposefully. They knew the environment. So the experiment that we listened to on the video, once again, if you missed the video, we already have it uploaded on Patreon. We already have the stuff there. But if you want to get the video more so or whatever, it's just on YouTube. I will try to share it on Facebook. And if you want, you can contact us, I guess, and somebody can give you the link. Right? It's called, you can look it up. Just look up Tyron's rat race experiment, and it'll pop up for you to listen. So if you want to take about it's 5.5 minutes long. If you want to listen to it now, or if you want to listen to it right after, it's not even a long listen. You'll be able to get the gist of what we were talking about. I'm on. So when we talk about this, you have to realize that everything we're going to talk about was done with this in mind, that they already knew that wherever the situation they put you in causes you. This is scientists now. This is not, oh, maybe it was known in some circles. No, it was already scientifically recognized. That's what they'll tell you, that if we put you in a bad environment, we'll get a bad outcome. If we put you in a great environment, we'll have a great outcome. But then somebody says, well, let me do an experiment to see. And then what did they do? They put the white lab rat in what? The great outcome. And they put the dull or the dark lab rat in the what? In the bad outcome. And then told you, we're shocked to see. And then guess what? Well, then if you're duller or blacker, then you must be somebody that's bad. Now somebody says, oh, now you're reaching, right? They do stuff like that all the time. They just did it to separate. Once again, what's this? There's a word, something mania. I always used to recall this word. Now I don't recall it that well. Something mania, where it was literally something put in place, a scientific term to say that you were crazy if you were trying to escape slavery. Right? I forget what it's called. Something mania. If somebody can look that, or matter of fact, I can look it up, I guess. Drapetomania. Thank you, Minister Tamara. I think you're the person who reminds me when I forget. Right? Thank you, Sister Monica. Drapetomania. Drapetomania says that if you try to escape slavery, you are crazy. You have a condition. And by the way, if you try to escape the United States corporation and become sovereign, become free, live in freedom, people say you are what? Crazy. Where does this come from? Don't try to escape the corporation. Don't escape the plantation. Don't think for yourself. Thank you, Sister Deborah. How you doing, Michael? How you doing, Into the Deep? Right? Be obedient in your slavery. Be in debt to society. By the way, anybody who's in debt is a slave, and anybody who's a slave is in debt. That's mandatory. If you don't know how that works, if you're in debt to anybody, you're a slave. If you're a slave to anybody, you're in debt. And you're in debt to a fake corporation with fake money. To show you how unreal money is, how is it that you have your credit report taken by a country that's 35 trillion in debt? Is that what they are now? It's going so fast now, who knows? And you believe that other countries don't call in their debt, or you believe that other countries will just keep doing business with them because they're afraid of the United States of America? You think that if you loan somebody, some of y'all, if you loan somebody $35, stay with me now. Some of you, if you loan somebody $35, you would be frustrated. Some of y'all frustrated because they owe you 35. You gave them 5, then you gave them 5 more, and then you gave them 5 more. And after a while, you got tired of it. They asked you for more. You say, you already told me 35, right? But in your mind, you think that America can be 35 trillion in debt. And by the way, who are they in debt to? Because America's not even allowed to print its own money. So the Federal Reserve has a lot of, you would say has a lot of the debt, but they're also to a lot of different people. The United States of America can't even print its own money. The money is monopoly money. Money's not real. There are very few species, and they've species usually that have come into contact with humans, but there's very few species that even think about bartering. Because bartering's not natural necessarily. Bartering is something that we do as far as human beings, but bartering, especially bartering using money, using paper, using something you can't eat or use in regular day, right? Like there might be a monkey out there that says, you got a banana and I got a pear. All right, cool. I want it. Let's switch. But if you gave one a piece of paper, another piece of paper or whatever, what are they going to do with that? It doesn't make sense, right? And you're not a monkey, right? If you were to give if there was a dolphin that had something and a dolphin that had another, they might want to do something because maybe the dolphin wants to use a puffer fish to get high like that, and that actually is real. And they might switch something or give some kind of affection to the dolphin or something so that they might be able to get the puffer fish or whatever, or just might wait their turn. But they're not giving up stuff that doesn't mean anything to them. Somebody had to trick you into even believing that money meant something to you. And on your money in this rat race, right? On your money, it has your slave owners on it. How you doing, Steven? What'd you say, Icy? Ain't nobody dating the broke man. Everyone forgets the truth. Saying as soon as the stream is over, money is a reality that can't be made ideologically irrelevant. It exists one way or another. Sure, right? I get you. I travel the world. I'm able to talk to people and teach people and do stuff like that. Watch this. And I still know that money's not real. I have a home, and yes, even though I go through difficulty, I don't get paid. I don't have a 9 to 5, but my family is well taken care of and does a lot of stuff that other families cannot, because I recognize that money is not real. And so the only reason why money means so much to you is because the environment that you're in, you try to get to a place where you have to keep being able. Now, look, I believe that if you're going to use money, now if you're going to use it correctly, you're you're talking. We're kind of talking the same language. I don't think you comprehend what I'm saying correctly. Like, I'm not saying you have no comprehension at all, but you definitely don't understand it. We're not under the same standard. So, peep game. If I have finances, if I have money, the goal is to spend the money. All these people that have a lot of money and stuff like that, you spend the money to be able to get more, right? All these people that you look up to, they have a currency, they have a flow. If you go to a bank, this is legal and lawful terms. It's natural law turning into substantive law, turning into these common law terms, and even some of this maritime law stuff that you're talking about, law of equity that you're going into, right? You have to spend it. You have to use it, right? So it's cash flow. A lot of these people who you're even listening to, they're in debt, but so they're still slaves to a certain extent, but they're in debt to other things, but they have a cash flow they're constantly spending. So their debt doesn't look like yours. Netflix is still what, tens of billions in debt, but they make money. Everybody's on the payroll, right? You see, so when you're talking about money and this and that or whatever, you go to a place of, oh, no woman must, you sound that sounds like a lot of red pill logic, and some of the red pill logic is sound, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. If your whole thing is you can't get a woman because you don't have money, first of all, find a wife. Because in my culture, we don't date. So our wives are not only looking at money, although number one and number two on a woman's needs and the 6 basic human needs is going to be security and affection. And we should make sure that we have nepotism in our society to where we're building up our sons to have this stuff rather than just saying, what can we do? See, I'm looking for generational wealth. So when I say money's not real and I don't really have much, the money that's donated to the organization I'm part of, the family I'm part of, and then what comes to me, it's not even for me, really. It's for my great, or so far as for my great grandchildren, because I want to take care of my grandchildren, because I know my children are taking care of my children to take care of my children are taken care of, then I'm taking care of as the one serving them to get them to where they need to be. So when you're coming talking about this stuff, you're not talking about money in the same level that I am, right? The property I'm trying to make sure that I keep is not mine. It's my son already has a place that he can stay, right? My mother or mother-in-law has a place that she can stay, right? That's our family dynamic, to try and make sure we take care of generations. So the money you talking about and little stuff like that or whatever, or no woman wants a broke boy. Well, I have a wife, not just a woman. She's on another level. And before we got married, she was already qualified in my culture to be a wife. And in my culture, I'd already be qualified to be a husband. And so we start there versus trying to find some woman that doesn't want a broke boy, because I'm not a boy. But if you want somebody who wants a boyfriend, then that's cool. But my wife, she wanted a husband because she's already qualified to be a wife. So I don't look at money the same as you might. No shade, but just telling you, right? That's the way it goes. So once again, but that's somebody else's context. See, even in talking about that in this rat race, you're talking about the race, not realizing how stuff has been set up in the environment. See, stuff is being set up in my environment, in my community, in my culture, for my family, to where we're not looking at money like you look at it as. So even if I have less of it, I can live better than many. Even if I'm struggling in certain things financially that everybody else is, I don't have a 9 to 5. And I can focus on what I'm called to do and help others around the world, not just or virtually, but even being able to help them, visit them, feed them, things like that. Because I'm not looking at like you're looking at it. Like, even if it's debt that I've had and debt that I've incurred over time and stuff, well, then the debt that I had, I got rid of it. Whatever I had to do to cut it, if I had to learn sovereignty, one of the reasons I learned sovereignty is to cut the debt, because debt is slavery. Whatever you're a debt. So see, even in the mindset, you're a slave or in debt to this woman that's looking for you to be a boy. But I'm not a boyfriend. I'm a husband. See, and that's when the red pill makes sense, as far as you say you should be the prize. Both of you should be the prize. But a lot of these men out here don't want to be husband material, which makes them the prize. You want to be boys and then look for girlfriends who will uplift you as boys. I don't have time for that. Right. And my wife, right, travels. We traveled across the country. We traveled to Canada. We traveled. Well, we didn't go to Mexico as of yet. We've traveled to Jamaica. She's been blessed to be able to go to Japan. She's been blessed to be able to go to Ghana. She's been blessed continuously over and over. I mean, so this whole thing of nobody wants a broke boy. That's somebody who's in a different mentality, right? Just because I'm not rich by your standard doesn't mean I'm not living a rich life. And just because I've decided to put some money, right, or really not even money, to use the money to get things that are generational. See, the dollar, if you hold on to a dollar in your hand, what's that going to do if you hand that dollar from today to your grandchild? It'll actually depreciate in value. But if I save up enough of them dollars and I save up enough of investments and things, and then I say, hey, not only is this for you, but also I use some of this to get you this land, to get you this food, to get you some stuff where you can start your own business. Here's your EIN already, right? Now that you got your EIN, go ahead and sow into yourself. See, there's a rat race you're going through. We're not talking about the environment, though, that causes you to say, well, I'm going to keep going at this. No one wants a broke boy and blah, blah. We're going to get into this rat race, right? If you give me a little bit. But I just want you to know, we might not be on the same frequency on this, because I didn't say live live a life to where you just grasping at straws. I said the goal is for us to become a people, really a nation, right? That's always at the center of it. Even when people get into the Bible, the goal is to make sure that you are a nation, right? How you doing, Bellamy Fitness? How you doing, beloved Oath Promise? Right? Is it Chocolate Nixon? Thank you for being on. Cole J. Moss, how you doing? That dude champ, thanks for being part of the community. Lady Henderson, at your best time, had a little. I see you. How you doing, Curtis Edwards? Everybody coming on, Forever Young. If I missed you, Brother Ali, if I miss anybody, please charge it to my head, not to my heart. Sweet Speedy, how's everybody doing? Remnant, welcome back. King David, thanks for being part of the community. Everybody, Sean Stutton, if I miss you once again, please forgive me. Prince, Raj, everybody, Lidar, everybody. Is it Tracy Jones? I might miss somebody, but we appreciate you. Ardale, everybody, we thank you so much. Aaron, Donovan. So today we're talking about this rat race, the Tyron's rat race, almost spelled like Tyrone, Tyron. For some reason, on the Wikipedia page, they have it spelled Try or Tyron or something. No, Tryon, but it's actually Tyron, like Tyrone, except without the E at the end. Tyron's lab experiment. And when you look this up, and we looked at the recording, once again, if you want to go on YouTube, if you want the recording we listen to was just a 5.5 minute explanation, but you can go and look, you can look at the video for yourself. And it's talking about how things are set up for environment, right? There's a rat race going on, and there's a lot of people who live in the projects, not realizing they are a project. And there's a lot of people that are going through a lot of different things, right? We even have terms called hood rat, don't even know where they come from, right? But in the hood, which by the way, we're the only people that don't have neighborhoods anymore, or at least we don't fancy them. We just want to be in hoods and not be neighborly. Like there's a lot of things that are going on, and we don't think about the etymology, the language, what happens in your mind to where you start cutting things off, and not even thinking of addressing things from a place of family of and valuing a family structure. So in these experiments, you have Tyron, and he takes these lab rats and he puts some in an excellent environment. How you doing, brother TJ? He puts them in an excellent environment. I'm talking about he gives them water. He gives them extreme amount of space, enough space to where if they wanted to be by themselves and be left alone, they could, where they could keep themselves clean. Because as much as people think that rats are just dirty, rats actually want to keep themselves as clean as possible, believe it or not. I know that they come with disease and this and that or whatever. I'm not saying go get a rat. I'm just trying to tell you they have needs just like everybody else, right? Matter of fact, part of the issue with the rats is that the rats start, when they tried to blame rats for the bubonic plague and everything. And the reality is it was just because people didn't clean themselves. The rats were clean. The rats took baths, right? There's videos of rats cleaning themselves, right? Like rats actually tried to bathe. The bubonic plague was not because of rats. How you doing, Sister Nadine? I tried to reach out to you earlier. I tried to reach out to you again today. Hopefully all is well. The rats don't rats don't want to be dirty. Just like, by the way, believe it or not, even though we know it's a filthy animal, we don't eat of it. I know I'm not telling you go against the dietary law. I'm just giving you examples. How you doing, Sister Sage? We know that even pigs don't want to be dirty all day. Pigs end up eating their own stuff or wallowing in the mud or doing stuff. Well, they wallow in the mud because they can't sweat. But pigs, if given an opportunity, you want to be clean, right? They're actually animals that prefer to be clean. Those who have pets that are pigs and stuff like that, they prefer to be clean. But when you put them in an environment right? Where they have no choice, then you do what you have to do to survive. So they put certain rats in an environment to where they were what? To where they had a clean environment, clean water, the food, the food was what? Clean, all these different things. Everything was perfect for what? For greatness. Everything was set up for them to be able to go. And they had the same, they were the same family members. They had the same genetic stuff. So this is not just saying different stuff. This is the family organization, family structure. They were close to each other. They were all this stuff. They grew up, with each other, all this different stuff. And they put them in an environment to where they had tons of room, tons of space. They had upstairs, downstairs. They had everything that a rat would want. They had no pellets in their food. They had no poisons in their food. Everything was as great as it could be, right? And guess what? They did what you would think. Everything was great. They did what you would think. Everything was great, right? Awesome. Now they take the other rats that we told you they called dull rats or the black rats or the what they didn't call them. That they just call them dull, which means what? Kind of stupid automatically. But what did they do? They put them in the bad environment. And what was the bad environment? Like the bad environment, they made sure they had almost no room, so they couldn't really move around. They put a whole bunch of them near each other, right? They they made sure that they had pellets instead of just regular food. They made sure that they put poison, a little, sometimes even a little hint of poison in the stuff, same stuff that you're eating today, right? Food, but it's more poisonous and it's more modified, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. You don't even know what's going on with onions. They can't even give seed and stuff anymore, things like that, or the onion roots when they grow and stuff like that, right? A lot of different stuff that's going on. They put them in a situation and environment. They made sure that they had almost no room. They were on top of each other, basically. And they put, after about, I think it was after about, is it 3 months or 4 months? Let's just say 4 months to be fair and make sure that we're going to be accurate. So how you doing, Marky? And thanks for being part of the community, Zeke. And how you doing, Curtis? So they gave him about 4 months. And after 4 months, the dull rats were put in the maze, in the rat race, right? And they couldn't even just get through the beginning of the maze, right? They took the white lab rats, or the positive rats, right? The ones that had everything they needed. They put them in the maze, shot through it, no problem, right? Then they said, let's test this just to see. Let's check this out just to make sure, right? So let's flip it. This is the part that they didn't talk about, where all of the rats, no matter what color, no matter whatever that they go through, they're going to end up being the same. The environment matters, right? But they didn't say this part, and they won't say this part on Wikipedia. But that's why we want you to watch some of these videos and learn for yourself, okay? That when we listened to that video earlier. But they switched them, and they took, after 4 months, then they did another 4-month experiment, and and I'm not talking about they took different rats and put different white rats in the bad environment, and different black rats. They took the same white rats that were able to go through the maze properly with no problem, and they put them in the bad environment. And they took the same black rats, the same dull rats, right, that weren't doing so well. Yeah, they have done prison experiments like that, believe it or not, right? At some of these movies you see where they switch places and stuff is real. And they took the same dull rats, right, that were doing real bad or whatever, or that were doing real bad and couldn't get through the maze at all, even the beginning of the maze, and they put them in the positive environment. Do you know, months later, they took both rats, both sets of rats, and they tried to put them through the maze again, and now it was the reverse. The dull rats, so to speak, were not so dull. They made it through the maze, no problem. The great rats, or the white lab rats, they seemed like they might have been a little dull. They couldn't make it through. Then they continued the experiment. They now took the dull rats, or the rats that were bad, the rats that were put in the wrong environment. They put them back, or initially, the ones that were put initially in the wrong environment, they put them back in the bad environment again. And this time they did a 6-month test. And as you could hear in the recording, but I'll repeat it. They took, after 6 months, the rats began to do things that sound similar to certain things that happen with people who are put in the same environment. The rats began to take the lives of the other rats, right? They had no space. So now, just like you have no space, everybody's living on top of each other. You're not fed correctly. You're being poisoned. Your mind's not right. You're not feeling clear-minded. So you got to fight over that street corner. Well, the rats started fighting over that little corner in the inside. How you doing, Travaris? So they start fighting over that corner on the inside. That corner is crazy. That corner means something, don't it? So now blood got to be shed. You can't just have rats, whatever. Now we got to shed some blood. How you doing, TD Magic Hands? Thanks for being on. So they started killing each other over territory. In the territory where they didn't have space, they had bad food, they didn't have water. By the way, they didn't clean the poop, so it was always dirty. Like when you go to the hood and there's, you go to, and when I say the hood, I'm talking about worldwide. Every hood I've been to worldwide. You talking about, if you're talking about Millennium City, even though in Ghana there's not really that much hoods, believe it or not. But if you look carefully, the hood anywhere, right? But they don't really have hoods like that in Ghana, believe it or not. Like they got poverty, but they're not really hoods there. At least the places I've been. I haven't been all over Ghana, but I've been to quite a bit of it, and I can tell you, I haven't really seen like what we call hoods, but even poverty. It's like, watch this, in Ghana, the hood is like if you go to the beach. The beach is nice and beautiful, except if we be honest, there's trash all over the place in certain places on the beach. So that's kind of like the hood. But ain't no fighting, ain't no beefing, ain't no whatever, right? There are homeless people there. I've seen my entire life 2 homeless people there, but I mean, there's homeless people there, but you can see there's a demarcation. Homeless people were not in the places that were rural or the places that you might even think were poor. Homeless people were actually in the city. And the city itself, the beast itself, causes them to lose their mind a little bit because the city starts to try and act a little cityfied. And if we just call that what we really mean in the South, you're acting kind of sedity or like white folk act. That's what they mean, right? But the hood in Brazil, when I went to Brazil, Cracuda, that was real. I shouldn't have made it through there. It was only because I was black. I was in the military and stuff and came through. They usually rob and take you. I didn't know. I took the wrong turn. They told me to make sure I stayed with everybody. I decided I was going to go myself and use the map or whatever, and I used it wrong. But I saw, oh, okay, you got the tin foil, you got the foil homes. Oh, okay, like you got the aluminum joints like that. Like that's hood, right? But when you see, you'll see that, right? But it's all environment. You see, once again, it's not clean. The water's messed up. There's no food coming through. The soil is jacked up. The rivers are all this stuff. All the stuff you guys see in Brazil, and you see Carnival, and you see all this stuff going on. Those are places where they separate and they take the people that were there after Bloqueamento. A lot of people, you don't know what Bloqueamento is. A Bloqueamento is when they had this whole thing, or Blanqueamento, excuse me, where there was going to be a whitening, right? Where literally there was a group of people that were there that were natives, and they were dark skinned. There were Africans who had already been coming over there, and then some who were brought over as slaves. There were black people. The black people, were way more than the Portuguese people and even and the white people. So the white people decided to say, hey, if you'll come over and live here and have sex with some of these black people and make these babies lighter and lighter and lighter, then we'll go ahead and we'll give you more money and we'll give you land to do so. Literally went through a process of whitening things, right? And then set it up to where they say, if you black, you're going to go over here. And the polluted side, if you're white, you're going to go over here. And then they put you in the same rat race and say, why can't you compete with us? Right? It's like the same thing you see in schools. Oh man, these black children this and these black children that, and our white children are fine and blah, blah. But look at the environment they're in. Right? It used to be indigenous people were here. We were the ones that taught you stuff. We were the ones that, even if you look up something like even a plant, there's a plant called white man's footprint. That's because wherever white men went, this plant would go, because we taught them how to be able to make sure that they could plant things and use things properly. So now all of a sudden, wherever he went, he used this as medicine wherever he went. Right? But now, what our ways that informed your ways are no longer righteous in your eyes. Well, they were always righteous, but they're not righteous in your eyes. And therefore you go ahead and you tell people, oh, that's not this, and they don't know anything. A lot of you wouldn't even know what white man's footprint is, or even what it was native called to the natives. Right? Still got a plant in the black earth. I see you. Right? And how you doing? Sister Alyssa, right? I believe. I think I got that correct. So yeah, so you have a lot of stuff where people are not even recognized. Or look at what happened in Canada. where native children were snatched. Natives were snatched, period. But native children were snatched, and they were forced to marry into white families. A lot of them escaped and were able to make it back to their people, but most of them ended up being lightened over time, and now they don't identify as that. They might say they're native, but they don't identify with their ways, right? A lot of you are native and fight against it. A lot of y'all used to laugh. You don't have to tell me who, but I used to be somebody. I didn't necessarily laugh, but I kind of chuckled a little bit because everybody made fun of, because all of these black people would be out here talking about, oh, I'm Cherokee and I'm this. Now, sometimes people did that because they didn't want to identify as black only, but we didn't recognize the truth and what our grandparents and our great grandparents were telling us, and some of our parents were telling us, like, no, you are Cherokee. No, you are Anakitawaya. No, you are Choctaw. No, you are Khalifa. No, you are, like, we didn't know. Right? Don't even know that Jamaican was a way of looking at Negroes that were Native American, and don't even know what a Negro is, because a Negro doesn't mean African and a Negro doesn't mean black. Matter of fact, you go to Spain, a black person is marron or marron, excuse me, in España, in Espanol, but in le français, marron, right? Brown. But if you're a particular type of black person, you are negro, you are black, right? But they're looking at that because Negroes are considered people who were Israelites, who were enslaved. And if you look at the Spanish Inquisition, right, all you got to do is some research, some quick research. During the Spanish Inquisition, they labeled the Negroes as different than the other brown people, and they wanted to enslave the Negro. And even Christopher Columbus went to the New World with a Hebrew interpreter looking for Negroes. Right? So you had a lot of power and a lot of stuff, and a lot of people are looking at you as something different. But then they take you from that environment, they change it up, they take your language, they tell you what you're saying is not correct. And then once they split you up, right, and give somebody else what was once yours, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence. What was your territory has now become somebody else's colony in their kingdom. And now they say, hey, come through our kingdom, come through our ways, and we're going to put you through the same rat race. Right. And then we say, oh, well, we gave you the same opportunity. You came through the same race. You did not give us the same opportunity because you took what was ours and then you appropriated it. That's why we must become inappropriate. Don't allow people to tell you to be appropriate, because what is appropriate? Appropriate means that somebody had to take it, they had to reuse it, they had to reform it, reshape it, make money off of it, and then they allow you to do it. That's what it means to be appropriate. Just because somebody pronounces it different and calls it appropriate doesn't mean that that's not what appropriate means. Hallelujah, somebody, right? Once again, if you're on Patreon, we already have this posted. If you want, I will try maybe to see if I can post this on TikTok and post a link on a TikTok video later. But if you're on Facebook with us, you can look for it there. But once again, we did put this on recording. It's on our YouTube channel as well. But if we did put the recording out there, you can literally look up, just type in, it's a 5.5-minute video. It should be the first video you'll see if you type this in on YouTube. And then there's other videos, of course, you can watch in books and a lot of stuff. But if you look up Tyron, Tyron, Tyron's white Tyron's Taiwan's rat race experiment. That's what I typed in after I saw the initial video on Minister Yassau's Facebook page. I typed in Tyron's rat race experiment, and the first thing that popped up is what we listened to when we started. Right? Environment matters. Now, once again, going back to when they decided not to just do it for 4 months, but they did it for 6 months, other things started coming into place. Other things in this experiment started coming to light. And I know some of you already heard the recording, but let me just repeat, because I know not everybody was on at that point. So when we listened to the video and we heard what was going on, we also realized and recognized, wait a minute, how you doing, Miss Meal? Thanks for being a part of the community. We also recognized and realized, wait a minute. When they started looking at the rats, excuse me, they said, wait a minute, these rats in a bad environment, after 6 months, they started taking each other's life off of territory. Remember, they were on top of each other. The other rats, they were given tons of space. They were given water. They were given real food, right? They had all the stuff. So everything was fine. They just did what you would think a rat would do. There's nothing to really put in the stuff in the experiment, because they just simply did. They had family dynamic. Males were males, females were females. There was nothing. Watch this, though. Those who were in a certain environment, all of a sudden they start offing each other because they need territory. They need that corner. Blood must be shed if it means that they'll be able to get a little space off me. Or somebody's got to be the big rat, right? Somebody's got to be the main one. Okay. So they started offing each other. Then there's some stuff that actually starts getting really interesting. The males, right, stop trying to get with females as much, and the females stop worrying about the children as much, or I don't know, the litter. I don't know what you call a baby rat, whatever you call a baby rat, right? But let me look it up to be sound. What is a baby rat called? Okay, pups. Okay, so the pups, right? So the pups are not even the females stop worrying about the pups, and the males stop worrying about the females. The males don't take care of the females. This is environment. This is not because the black man is trash. This is not because the black woman is trash. This is because of the environment. Right? Sounds familiar, right? Hear what I'm saying now. An experiment and a project, if you will. Don't miss this, right? This is something. And once again, before they started the project, they already knew, right? Scientists already agreed that environment causes a bad thing. But this person went to a level, and then after they saw this environment, they started building more projects. After they saw this experiment, they started building more. You got to catch this. The males stopped worrying about taking care of the females. Every once in a while, would get with the female when she would let them. But what happened is also too, because males and female dynamic is not where it's supposed to be. The males started going after and SAing. The males started SAing male and female pups, the younger ones. I know we don't want to admit it, but that sounds a little familiar in our diaspora, especially on the Western side. Africa, that doesn't really happen as much, but we're not going to act like it didn't happen at all either. It's starting to pick up more because they're starting to have, even as much as people keep saying we're further away from apartheid and slavery and all this stuff is still increasing. It's a spirit that people don't want to talk about. Even in sovereignty, you got to talk about a spirit. I know, even in freedom, even when you talk about law, people don't want to talk about the spiritual side of law. Law still has to have a spirit. That's why they say in God we trust and stuff like that. That's why they also say unalienable rights, and they say God given this and blah blah. They put that because then you have to have religious rights, right? For amendment, because you have to allow what somebody believes in the private to always supersede what's done in the public, or in other words, the spiritual to always supersede the beast. We just don't know what these terms mean. We don't study the etymology. We don't study law. And we have a lot of believers in their so-called word, and they say in their Bible that they believe in this stuff and don't even look to see how to use this in law. And how you doing? Prosperity, Shalom Campbell, and user 443-76-874-84506. Thanks for being on with us, right? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Monique? And how you doing, Coleman? Shalom to everybody. Peace, peace. So can we see there's a problem? And this is environment. This is just environment. If I give you fake food, if I don't clean your water's dirty, right? I don't clean up the poop, right? Your sewage system is messed up. There's trash everywhere. There's no real food. The food has poison in it. Does it sound familiar, right? This is what the rats started to do. The male rats started to do. Watch this. The female rats, to me, okay, cool. Well, it sounds familiar to me because I go across diaspora. So I take care of people besides myself, and I travel the world, and I try to make sure that people outside of myself are taken care of. So when I see those things, I actually say I take note of it, right? And by the way, you missed it, because it doesn't matter if you put the black rat in it or the white rat in it, the environment's going to do it. So even if you're doing that thing or whatever, or if you're just saying to me because I'm poor and you've never seen it. But yeah, I didn't grow up, let's say per se, even though I was homeless at one point in life years ago, but I didn't grow up per se impoverished, even though I hung out around a lot of people that were. But I did grow up to be empathetic, you know. Oh no, bro, you said to you? Okay, I just saw to you. I apologize. Maybe I got that wrong. So I apologize if I'm wrong. So we have to recognize and realize, right? We have to recognize and realize what's going on, right? We have to recognize that the environment is going to shape whatever's in it. Now, going back to where I was going, the female rat. The female rat began to not care about her pups. It's all gravy. Thank you for being on. Is it Almighty or Almighty? I'm not sure if I'm, or it might even be Almighty. I'm not sure, but Almighty, how you doing? So the female rat began to stop worrying about her pups. Now, that means that more things will happen to her pups because she's not worried about them. Also, it means her pups will be raised in this environment where it's kill or be killed. Right? Once again, this is called Tyron's rat race, or well, today we're calling it Tyron's rat race experiment. The female, mama, the nurturer, stopped nurturing. Why? Because she's not being taken care of. She's not protected. So what does she got to do? She got to take care of herself. Right? The female rat. Stop worrying about the pups. And not only that, as crazy as it's gonna sound, right? And I know in the video they started saying hood rat stuff, sound like hood rats or whatever. But as crazy as this might sound to you, but look at the similarities. The female rat, not only would she not take care of the pups, she spent more time grooming herself. Now recall, she doesn't always necessarily got time for the male rats, except to have babies. So if it's time to have babies, if she want to have sex, she'll get a male rat time. Other than that, she's grooming herself, and she's not even worried about the raising of her pup. After the pup gets off the teat, she kind of stops training. She stops worrying about certain things. She stops protecting. She stops nurturing. Right? This stuff, it sounds familiar. Our people, not as a whole, I don't even know if I could say as a majority, although I could say a majority of us have gone through some of this or seen some of it or been affected by some of it. How you doing, Savannah? Right? But this is what people did, and they knew this. They did an experiment, and after this experiment, they started building projects. Ghettos were already built, by the way, and people say, "Oh no, yeah, you're talking about in Germany." No, no, no. This is why you got to know who you are. Get the first ghettos, and you can still go over to Portugal and look up somebody. Go look at these. They're fenced off and everything, but people were living in them even into the 1900s. But you can go back to ghettos that were built in the 1600s for Negroes, who by their standard are considered to be people who were into the Torah, had locks, were swarthy, spoke in Avda, Paleo Hebrew. They wore hoodies. Now they were forced to wear the hoodies, but they wore hoodies. They were on the street corner doing poetry, and then somebody would play music. They would put poetry over music. That sounds familiar. And they were called Sephardic Yehavada, or what you call today Sephardic Jews. Probably would have even been Sephardic or Sephardic Judah. And we don't even know. The first ghettos were built for them, and then they used that to start putting them into a place where they went through the Spanish Inquisition and were forced to give up their belief system and become Christians and Roman Catholics, which is why as Protestant, and by the way, Protestantism just comes out from Roman Catholicism. Remember, Protestantism only starts because King Henry VIII wanted to go ahead and have as many wives as he wanted, and wanted to off as many of his wives without anybody, coming at him, right? But however, right, Protestantism, if you look at it, a lot of these churches that you go to, they act just like the Roman Catholic Church. They got the same positions. You got archbishops, you got bishops, some of them. You've got some brothers out there now preaching to people, telling them that they're the Pope. There's really only 3 types of Christian, technically 2, but 3. The separating of when they got to the mixing of iron and clay in Daniel chapter 2, you got the right foot, you got the left foot. And Christianity, all you've got is Eastern Rome became what you call Orthodox Christianity. Western Rome became Roman Catholicism. And then Roman Catholicism, out of that, King Henry VIII left, he became the first Pope of Protestantism. That's it. So if you're a Christian, you got to realize, see, being a Christian is not even biblical. But somebody took you out your environment, stopped feeding you correct stuff, started giving you them poison pellets, started making sure. And so you got out of a whole bunch of concepts that's yours. And then they put you in the same rat race. They give you the same Bible. You don't even know how to read correctly. You said there's 41,000 types of Christians? Sure. But technically, there's only 3. There's only 2, really. There's only 2 umbrellas for it. And they really all come from one. They come from the Rome, which comes from Greco-Roman, come from the Medo-Persians, which comes from Babylon, and you're dealing with Mesopotamia and Kemet. And then you want to go back further, find even Cush was jacked up at one point, and then but you're dealing with the same spirit. But right, remember, the word Christian didn't even exist when the Bible was written. I'm not talking about just what you call the Old Testament. It wasn't even written when the Bible was written. It wasn't there. Somebody wrote that in. Right? The only reason why a lot of you became Negroes, not Marron, not just brown people. The reason why a lot of Negroes became Christian is because you were forced to. You were put in ghettos, and the ghettos, just like they used them when they started using them, when Hitler started using them for the ones that he said weren't the real Israelites, but then he still did the same thing that others did, right? That those, by the way, those Jewish people did when they were slave owners over Negroes. Nobody talks about that, but the Jewish people, they take a lot of great notes. We should too, but they take a lot of great notes, and you can read their notes about what they did, how they said they were uncircumcised, we were circumcised. They said we believed in the scrolls, they did not. They said all these different things about you. But when these scrolls, when these epistles, and now what you call the Biblios, or the set of books, or the Bible that's written, that doesn't even have all the books in it, but now this Bible that's written, if you be honest about it, when this Bible is written, and all the stuff that you're reading in it, you're reading it from a separated point of view. You weren't fed correctly. You were put in a whole another place. And don't even realize that in the Bible, it talks kind of about this experiment. Now, in the Bible, it just says that these are curses that will happen when you're disobedient, but we'll just liken it to the rat race for today. But if you go to your Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 28, start at verse 54. What does it say? We just talked about the rat race and what happens, right? When you're put in a bad environment. Well, when you get a chance, once again, look up Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54. It will start there, and it'll start talking about the male, or us as men. And it will say that because we are in an enclosed environment and we are under siege, so we can't get out. See, when you start catching this stuff and you start putting it together, and you start putting it together properly, culturally, it's hard to disavow. Because truth is truth, right? Amat is amat. It doesn't matter where you take truth. Truth is always going to be true, right? And half-truths are always whole lies. That's why we got to get rid of these half-truths, and we got to live in real truth, so we don't have to keep going through this nonsense over and over again. Thank you for the love. Appreciate you. So peep game. Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 54, even if you want to go to the curses, and we should recognize the curses. Now, we shouldn't just only think about curses, because we do have Deuteronomy 28 verses 1 through 14, which is blessings. And if we were obedient, we could get back to just blessings, and bless in the field, and bless when we go in, and bless when we come out, and bless the increase of our kind, and the sheep and the cattle and all this stuff. And blessed shall we be your enemy come before you one way and will flee before you several ways. And you should never be in debt. You should be the lender and not the borrower. Like we could get back to that. We do focus a little too much, if I be honest. We do focus a little too much on the curses. But nevertheless, Deuteronomy 20 verse 54, it does the same thing. It says you're under siege. It says you don't have space. It says you're not eating. What happens during the siege? During the siege, they make sure that food doesn't come in or out. During the siege, you can't go in or out. During the siege, you were cut off from supplies. Whatever you have in your community at the time when the siege starts is whatever you're going to have, or you're going to have less of it. If the siege is done properly, you'll have less of it by the end of it. Matter of fact, a lot of people during the siege will either will take their own life, or, and trigger warning, forgive me, will either take their own life, or they might just simply decide that they'll go out and try to fight against an enemy that's way too much, so that they can just have their life taken. But during the siege, there's a lot of different things that are going on. During the siege, your way of living changes. During the siege, your positions don't really matter as much, because, hey, if we all in this together, then who cares who should be looked up to and who shouldn't? We all just trying to survive and scrape. During the siege, whoever can strong arm the other person is the person we start getting under. Whoever can fight the best, whoever can live the best, whoever can survive the most, whoever gets the most scraps on the table, right? During the siege, people start making back end deals. They start becoming traders and making deals with the enemy, hoping that somebody can come on in, right? Don't forget what happened with Rahab. When you under siege, and especially when you know that the enemy that you're going against might have a little more than you do and might be able to win, you might let some stuff happen even to a lot of your other people if it means that your family will be protected. Being under siege, it does some stuff to you. And so Deuteronomy 28 verse 54, it says that we are under siege. And in this thing of being under siege, it says, now watch this now. In this thing of being under siege, peep game, it says while we're under siege, it says the males start looking at other males first. It's not that we start looking at female, it's that we look at the other males first. What happened in the Tyron rat race experiment that we're talking about today? Rats started looking at male rats first. Right? The environment causes the protectors to start realizing, well, if I can't whatever, then I start looking at what my brother has. And so in times of siege, in times of being in your captivity, in times where they take away any semblance of being great or respected, or you don't feel heard already, all these different things. Well, now what happens? Well, now I start looking at my brother. How did he get those scraps that I don't have? You recall, even Yehoshua, the Messiah, he went to his own country and preached the same word that he did that could deliver everybody else, to give them authorization to come through him as the door, so that they could get the healing in the kingdom and get the demons cast out and all this stuff. And he preached the word, and they were amazed. They were astonished. They said everything he said was on point, but then what was their first response? How did he get that anointing? Because they grew up with him. How he get it? How'd he get what we can't get? See, when you go back home and everybody tripping off or whatever, you got to realize they're not mad. The matter of fact, they realize what you're saying is real. But then the next question is, how did you get what we didn't get? Aren't we in the same rat race? How'd you make it to the next level of the rat race and we didn't make it to the next level? How'd you get married and we didn't get married? How is your wife submit, not to you because it's not submission, but submit to the mission? Submission. Why is she willing to do this? Why does your husband protect you and give you affection and mine doesn't? Right? It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's that you're in a different environment, and your environment yields different things. And so here comes Yehoshua to report. See, he was ported in their environment. You've been ported in somebody's environment. He left. He went. He was baptized. He was obedient. He fasted. Then after that in the wilderness, he made sure that he passed the test. He said it is written that after the 40 days, he was tested and passed the test. Then he started preaching the word, and he does the Sermon on the Mount, all that. And then finally comes back to his own countrymen after he's been taking care of people from all these different nations. He comes back to his nation. He comes back to his country. He comes back to his people, and his people wouldn't respect him. That's why he says a prophet, right, is not without honor. A prophet always should get honor. But recognize prophets, when you try to go back and try to report and bring back a lot of stuff, most people aren't trying to hear it because they're still doing what? They're still in the same environment. They're still in the same environment. Yeah, your environment should be set apart. Even Revelation chapter 12 tells you that Israel, the woman with the crown with 12 stars on it, should be set apart so that the remnant will be able to see that it might seem like they're in an environment that's great because that's all they know. But if they see your environment versus theirs, they have a place to go. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is building a nation, building a place, building an environment, even virtually. How you doing, Clarence? Even virtually, there should be some kind of environment that's set to where this feels different. It seems different. It operates different. It looks different than others. Right? I'm not saying that you can't get some of the stuff. There's just certain things you won't get on this environment. If you're looking for every other word out of my mouth to be hallelujah, we thank you, hallelujah, for this word, hallelujah, to make sure, hallelujah, that the rat race, hallelujah, to help. I'm not saying that you can't find it. I'm just saying this is a different environment. It doesn't mean that we don't believe and giving the Most High praise. It just means that we don't believe in vain repetitions. It's a different environment. And if the Messiah says don't have vain repetitions, in other words, don't just repeat stuff just for the sake of repeating it, then maybe we shouldn't do it. An environment change, looking at the environment different, allows you to even read your word different. So anyways, back to Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. It says right there that they're having this issue, right? Deuteronomy 28, verse 54, it says they're having this issue, right? And they're having this issue, the men start looking at what the other men have. How does he have it? And so now he doesn't feel secure in his manhood. This is why Willie Lynch He attacked the chieftain, the man, whoever the head dog, the lead dog was, if you will. I know we ain't dogs, right? We get called dogs too much. But whoever the head man is in charge, the HNIC, the head Negro in charge. How about that? The HNIC, right? The HHIC, the head Hebrew in charge, whichever one you want to use, right? But he attacked him because if he goes down in front of everybody and then you beat all the other men down, not to take their lives, but to get them to the point of losing their life, and the women and children see it, you've broken the whole society. Sisters are important, just as important as men are. But hear what I'm saying. The men are the foundation. You don't live in the foundation, you live in the house. So the house needs to be all right. The sisters need to be taken care of and protected, and they have affection and have the layout and the structure. And you better make sure she get them nails done every once in a while and stuff like that. That's her nature, so that she can be the nurturer that she is. Feed into her nature so that she can nurture. A lot of our sisters don't nurture because they're not getting what's in their nature. A woman is a daughter. You know, you married a daughter, right? When you got married, you married somebody's daughter. You married the Most High's daughter. You know this, right? Like, she's not just only a girlfriend. She's not just only a woman. She's not just the baddest bee and all this foolishness. She's a wife, but she's also a daughter. And she was supposed to be raised to be a daughter since a wife. And a lot of them didn't get a chance to have that. So now we've got to come through and make sure that we're protecting the little girl in her that was never protected, and showing her it's all right for her to get that. And then watch her open up to being nurtured by you giving her what's in her nature, so that she can turn around and get in her nature, so she can give you what needs to be, so you can be nurtured. Oh, I don't know if I could even say that again. Oh, come on, Holy Spirit. Let's try it. Let's try it. Let's try it. Let's try it. If I would make sure that I realized that she didn't grow up with the father figure and the mother figure and the community that's supposed to protect who she is, then if I realize that, actually, then I'll come into a realization that now she has never really truly been nurtured, and because she has never been able to be in her nature, she can't trust it. So if I would give an opportunity to her to actually see that it's possible, that it's not only possible, but also it's probable. Not only is it probable, but it is mandatory that she would be able to receive, and not only receive, because some of them haven't even gotten it ever, but if she sees it and then can receive it over and over again, she will drop her guard and she will get back to nurturing. But guess what? I have to nurture her. So I have to nurture her by doing what? By putting her in her nature and giving her what is her nature. And when she receives her nature, when she's in her nature, she'll turn around and she'll nurture from her nature. It's her nature to nurture. But if she hasn't been nurtured by receiving that nature, or hasn't been nurtured by being put in what is natural, then why would she nurture anybody? She doesn't got time for it. She didn't have time to nurture them babies when she got to work like you do. My wife has a business. My wife, is starting to get busy with things and starting to decide that she might go ahead and do a little bit of work here and there, whatever. But here's the difference from before. She don't have to. And I've said this before. No matter what you want to say, sisters, and especially if you're new to this, right? Sisters, I'm going to ask you to listen to me. Brothers, I'm going to ask you to listen to me, because some of y'all are going to be upset too. But sisters, listen to me. A lot of sisters on here, you already know what I'm about to say, right? But sisters, if you're first time, I'm literally saying, listen to me. Give me a chance to finish every part of this sentence I'm about to say, because you're going to think that I'm coming from a misogynistic point of view at first. All right? All right, you ready? There is not one woman on the planet who has ever existed. Peep game. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to start the sentence again. There is not one woman on the planet that has ever existed that wants to have a job. I'm going to say it again, because some of you missed it. I know you missed some words in there, because you're saying that I said a woman can't have a job. She can't work. I didn't say that. Hear me again. Hear me again. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it 2 more times. All right. Before you fry me up. I think if you listen, you'll get what I'm saying. There's not a woman on the planet who has ever existed that wants to have a job. All right, give me one more time. All right, give me one more time. Give me one more chance. Sister, give me one more chance. Give me one more. Just one more. All right, look, there's not a woman there's never been a woman on the planet that wants to have a job. In other words, Nobody's saying that. Matter of fact, if you look at the virtuous woman, she had a business, but a work is different than a job. And even in her work, she's doing stuff to support what's already there, not the only thing that's there. Okay, so our sisters are created. It's not in their nature to have to carry. Now, look, if you marry a real one, if you marry a wife, guess what? When the chips are down, I heard a sister say this. I said this a few nights ago, or maybe this was last week sometime. Um, I heard the sister speak, and I wish I could reference her by name because I cannot. But I only caught a clip. But she said something that was powerful, and she was breaking it down to one of these red pill cats who kind of was lazy in his thought process already. Anyway, doing the whole you should have a job, and if I have a job, and blah blah whatever. And she was schooling them. It was excellent. However, one thing that she said that everything really caught my ears. She said, um, "You shouldn't want a woman that that works." And even though we know work means different, I'm just quoting her. She said, "You don't want a woman that works." She said, "You want a woman that's capable." I said, and I just looked at the screen, like something in me just stopped. I was just like, the phone was across the room, and I was just like looking at it, like, okay. Right? And then she explained it though. She said, "Look, um, I'm gonna be supporting you, doing all this stuff or whatever. And look, you should have job, this and that or whatever." She says, "Cool, have all your stuff together and working this and that." She said, "Now look, I'm capable." She said, "Right now, in this moment, as I'm talking to you, I have 2 jobs. I have no problem having a job." And she's like, "And I have to take care of babies, unfortunately, because I have somebody that doesn't take care of the babies, right?" And she said, "I'm trying to work it out with them because I'm trying to still be a wife, even though he's not doing what he's supposed to." She said, "Because I'm capable." She said, "But the reality is that what you should really want is a wife who's going to know what the mission is, who's going to support it, who's going to do everything you need and all the stuff that you have on your list. And you should be able to make sure that she's protected. She has security. She knows what's going on. She is able to have breaks and stuff like that, but she's able to love you and stuff. She's able to do all this stuff so that all you got to do is focus on what you're supposed to do. And then we can come together and do things or whatever. And I can focus on what I'm supposed to do. If the rubber meets the road and you lose your job," she says, "I'm capable. Or if we need more, if we want to save up some money, or if we want to get a house or whatever the case," she said, "I'm capable of getting a job." Right. But she said, "That's not my work." You don't want a woman, and I'm fixing the words now as far as our culture. But what she's basically saying is you keep telling me to toil or have a job. And the reality is that you actually want a woman that's capable of multiplying. Right? You want a wife that's capable of, you give her 15 cents and she'll make $1 out of it. You want a woman that's capable of, you give her $25 and somehow, some way, there's groceries in the house, right? While you're at home, while you're at work trying to figure this stuff, you know how brothers be like, "Oh, women just be doing mundane things." No, no, no. Peep game. You want a wife that while you're at work 8 hours a day, you sit there and you say, "Man, she's wasting the time just going through the coupon book." But then she goes to the store and she lays out all these coupons, and now the store owes her money. She wasn't just doing nothing with the coupons. She said, "You ain't making enough to do what's necessary as far as the food. However, I'll study that and I'll take care of it and I'll work that out while you're at work. You don't have time to do all this because you got to put in that work. But I'll take time to get the coupons and everything down so that you don't even have to worry about the groceries because I'm here to support the mission." You see? But we haven't been trained correct on this. We haven't had the correct environment. So if you allow her to be in her nature, watch her start to nurture. Her first response is to nurture, including you. Now, why is it that sisters don't nurture the men? Well, let's go back to Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. Because there's been a lot of times where I've given my wife $20 and somehow, some way, we eaten 3, 4, or 5 days off of it. Don't make sense to me sometimes. There's been a lot of events to where I don't have no money, right? SOC really ain't got no money, and somehow, some way, we doing well. Not just because of donations, and we thank y'all for the donation, but I'm saying sometimes there's been times where we've done stuff and I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know how we're going to travel. We're not even taking care of ourselves, but we're going to be obedient to what we're called to do. Elder, I'm on it, right? There's a nurturer in there, right? Give it to me and I'll nurture it. Give it to me, I'll multiply it. Give it to me and I'll make it smooth. Give it to me, I'll watch. Sometimes the nurturing is not your headache, bruh. Like sometimes it's not your headache. Tell me what I need to do. And somebody, well, I can't tell my wife anything. I bet you can, but you keep trying to ask your wife to go outside of her place. But anyway, Deuteronomy 28, verse 54, right? Because believe it or not, a lot of women want to be in, I'm not saying this in a negative fashion, sisters. There's a lot of sisters that would prefer to be in their place, but we keep trying to put them everywhere except their place. Right? So we throwing you out there, and then we say, stay in your place. It's like, this ain't my place. I'm not supposed to be doing all this. I'm not supposed to be carrying all this weight. I'm not supposed to be out here by myself. What you think you're going to get? Some of them want to be in their place. Some of them are waiting for a husband, not just a man, a husband, and not just a husband, one that becomes one after marriage, but one that's pre-qualified. And some of them are looking for a husband that actually has direction. And if he says something, they know it'll happen. And then some of them want a husband that prays about stuff and prays over them. And they know that if he's praying over them, then he's praying over the family and he's praying over decisions that he makes. Some of them they just want to see it, but they haven't seen it. Okay. I keep saying Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. Let's go. Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. So you go back there and you'll discover that men are jealous of men. How you doing, Shabbos? Thank you for the love. And so we start looking at each other. And as we're looking at each other as men, we get to this place where now it says that we start looking at the woman in our bosom. So we had her here. We had her. We were holding. We were protecting. We were loving on her as our own daughter. But we're under siege, and under siege, you've gone into survival mode. And in survival mode in that environment, you start looking at whatever scraps are left. And when another brother has more scraps than you, you start trying to figure out what's going on, and you come home now and you're angry. Does this sound familiar? Does it sound familiar? You go home and you're angry. Come on, somebody. You go home and you're angry. And you take it out on the wife, the woman of your bosom. Because there's nothing there. There's no respect for you out there anymore. There's no position for you out there anymore. There's no more titles for you out there anymore. Nobody even wants to have you be a man. To be masculine is toxic, as if masculinity is toxic. If it's true masculinity, especially Yahweh's masculinity, then it can never be toxic, because what the Most High has is perfect, never toxic. But here he comes having to deal with all that stuff. And so he comes home and he's hoping and praying. He really is. He's hoping and he's praying and he's wishing that if I come back here, things will be different. I'll have peace at home. And even if the wife is trying, she doesn't have what she sometimes to make it peaceful. Or if we be honest, because remember, these are things that come from curses. This comes from disobedience. Sometimes you have women that are disobedient to this principle. And so your husband comes home and he's looking for peace. And he's hugging up on you. He's doing all this stuff. And he's telling you how hard it is out there. And you keep telling him, I don't care. You want to cook it? I got to deal with this and that, blah, blah, whatever. You better get yourself together. Oh, look at you. Now that I'm saying something, you all up in your feelings. You so emotional, this and that. Not realizing that man ready to jump on you. Had a man said what you saying to him, he would have punched him in his face already. I'm not saying you should punch your wife in the face. I'm just trying to tell you, you were saying stuff and not realizing that you were exacerbating the situation. They'll straight up tell you, well, you think you're the only person. Do you not realize what I had to do? Shoot, I had to go get a job because you ain't making enough money, blah, blah, or whatever. That's not what you need to be saying, especially if now watch this. If he's done wrong, sure, call it out, do these things. But I'm trying to tell you, talk to him like a human being, and not just any human being. Talk to him like the male variety. Bruda, if you have a problem and you going through something, you've never once heard me say, no matter what, you got to man up and get it together. But there's a lot of sisters who would say that because they were taught to speak like white men to black men. Oh, that hurts. I know I felt that in my shunda. Somebody didn't like that. But we don't speak to that spirit today, right? I know family who will tell you, I worked around white men. I worked in this type of establishment for so many years that I actually treat everybody like I actually feel like I'm talking about sisters who have told me, who work for the government, who will tell me that I'm not talking about what brothers have said. I'm talking about what sisters have told me, right? In confidence, and I won't put out their names and I won't give you exact situations, but in confidence, some of them have said it outright. Some of them have said it in public format. Some of them have said it on the podcast, that they worked in government positions and they actually realized they were working and acting like white men, and they would treat everybody like they were like white men treated everybody else. So if white men treated black women like this, then they get around black women and they spoke to black women like they were white men, or like the person speaking was that. If they were around their husbands who were black men, they would treat them like that. If they were white and had white friends, they would treat their white girlfriends like the white men would treat them if they were there. I'm telling you what I was told and what I've seen. after I was told, I said, let me research some of this. And sure enough, and I recall being in the military. And I said, well, how did they speak to us? You know, I had a lieutenant commander that was over me for a minute. How does she speak to me? How does she treat her husband? Oh, okay. I recall, right? And I'm talking about this white woman. I'm not talking about black woman, right? White woman. I've had black women over me too, but I'm talking about specifically in this dynamic that I'm talking about with the lieutenant commander, right? And I recall she said some wild stuff, and I recall she did some caring type stuff. And people that were under her, we would kind of look at her sometimes like, this is a little, you see what I'm saying? Just being honest. Just being honest. Can we keep it real? Right? And there's a lot of black women who have told me, and I see it now that there's a lot of black women who treat black men like it's like they're the white, like they deserve to be down. Like, if why don't you just get it? Like, they haven't been raised in a different environment. Like, it's not part of your responsibility to help to nurture that man, right? And not only that, if you can get with this black man, get with a black husband, and not even worry about the black, get with that Israelite or kingdom husband that's under the rules and regulations and the law. And if he's under the law, he's going to be perfected because the law is perfect. Yeah, the imitation of male white patriarchy. And by the way, because guess what? Can I tell you something, sisters? Can we just hit something real quick? Sisters, hear me and hear me well on this. I promise you, even if this don't make sense initially, I promise you, meditate on this when you get a chance. If write this in a note or whatever, if you don't have time to hear the other stuff and meditate at the same time, write this down as a note. I promise you this. Men do a lot of stuff we do because we're trying to get you. Hear me now. Here it is. It's gonna sound simple, but this is not common sense. This is kingdom sense. Hear what I'm about to tell you, sister. And brothers, they're gonna be amening in the comments. I promise you. Watch this. Watch this. You ready? We do a whole bunch of stuff that we do because we're trying to get you. Right? Men are driving around in the cars they're driving around because they think that gets you. Right? At least kingdom-minded man. Men are getting homes because they're thinking somebody might get there, right? Right, and all this stuff. You said true from a man. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can speak as a man because I am one. I'm a kingdom man and I have no problem, right? So, but hear what I'm saying. Men are doing what they're doing because they're trying to get you. So whatever you are attracting, not always the case. Some men are liars and this and that or whatever. I know there's exceptions to every rule, but hear what I'm saying. We are attracted to whatever will give us play, especially those who are in the dating community still, because dating is not in our culture. But hear what I'm saying. So if everything you give off is wife, and he's trying to get you, he's going to do what husbands do, pre-qualified before he even approaches you. But this is why, okay, if you at the club and you sitting there, you dancing and doing whatever, right, and getting your stuff on it, then you dancing, you ever bent over and you look back and you like, and there's somebody behind you all nasty and stuff all on you and stuff. Guess why he thinks he can do that? What is the environment? He came there thinking that women come here and they give it up and they do this and blah, blah. And maybe I got to take her to dinner, but at least I'll get the number. There's a possibility if I get her a drink, she'll speak, blah, blah. Who knows what happens from there? It's the club environment, right? Okay. If he's at work, what do corporate women act like? I'm just trying to help you. All of this is carnal mind we're going to go into, right? Pete Gay. If you're at corporate, a corporate woman acts a certain way too. So guess what a corporate man does? Corporate men are still trying. A lot of them, once again, I'm not talking about husbands, just men. Not talking about kingdom, but corporate. They come in there, now professional, sure. But what does professional even mean? Does it mean that he's nice towards you, this, or is it just like he speaks a certain way, he has a certain demeanor, this and that, but he's still trying to get you to the same bedroom. He's just going to operate different. Okay. What if you talking about church? There's a lot of brothers that know if they come in there and they start praising the Lord and they're emotional and they cry and they got stuff that matches and they say I'm not too much of a man to cry and this and that or whatever, and they get in bed with a lot of sisters like that too. But they were dignified. They were holy. They were able to do that for a while and everybody got excited. They could give you the two-step, right? And everybody got excited. But he's that don't mean he holy. There's that old saying, a man will only do what you allow him. I'll say this: men do what they think attracts. But if you're a wife and you're only gonna stay in the place of wife, the only way he's gonna be able to get to you is if he's a husband. As much as, and look, I believe in the patriarchal society and all that stuff to a certain extent. It really a lot more than a lot of your average person does. Some more even than some of the feminists do, believe it or not. That being said, most men are not trying to force their way into anything. It's not even worth the effort, and it's not worth losing time off your life and going to jail. Some men will do that foolishness and they think that they're powerful enough to get away with it. That's not the majority. Most men ain't got time for that. Most men are going to do what you allow, and they're going to give you what you're looking for. And even when we get married to you, we're going to continue to honor you because we want peace. And so if we give you what you're looking for, all we want is give us peace and let us be heard. And I promise you, like, here's something. You ever heard a man say, and I know some women say this, I'm not trying to say this is just male, female specific or gender specific, if you will. You ever heard a man say, or you be like, hey, you go to a man, you say, you want a birthday party? He says, no, not really. I don't really celebrate birthdays like that. I'm not really tripping. Or you want to do this or that way, you want to go out the bar? He's like, no, not really. So then you surprise him. And you can tell he plays nice in front of everybody because he doesn't want to put you on blast in front of everybody. He doesn't want to make you guys look bad in your relationship, and he doesn't look like a jerk. So he's like, oh, this is so nice. And you can tell, oh, he's not really feeling this. And you get upset with him after whatever your surprise is, and you come to him and you say, why didn't you like the surprise? And I did this and blah, blah, and I gave you blah, blah. And he says, look, that's not what I need. Because believe it or not, men are cool if everybody else is cool. Like, I comprehend when I'm on the road, I comprehend that I'm out of all the stuff that we're doing, you would think I get rest and blah, blah, this and that. I'm probably gonna get the least rest out of the whole group. If we meet up for Feast of Tabernacles, I'm probably sleeping less than everybody else. Right? I'm probably not eating as much as everybody else. You would think, oh, well, why wouldn't you do blah, blah, whatever? Well, as a man, my responsibility in that moment is everybody else taken care of. If everybody else is taken care of, there's a huge part of me that's at peace because I'm like, whoo, okay. Because I'm called to protect the fam. So if I know everybody's at peace, if I know everybody's getting where they need to, if I know everybody's cool, if I know everybody, is protected, if I know everybody is secure, if I know everybody's having fun, I'm really okay. Thank you, Sister Monica, right? Yeah, I'm okay. Matter of fact, I've learned to eat last because if everybody's ate, then I can go ahead and get as much as I want because when everybody else got to wait for the last person in line before they get seconds, I can just get first and seconds. As a man, I've even cracked the code on that. You know what I'm saying? I've learned that it's okay for me to be last. I just want to make sure everybody else is secure. But see, I know my place. And so a real husband, a real kingdom man, he actually knows what his place is. But once again, I'm also in a different environment. I'm not in the same environment that a lot of these young Negroes are out in now to where it's kill or be killed. I grew up around a lot of them. I hung out with a lot of them. Almost got some time hanging around some of them, right? Even though that wasn't me. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not going to pretend I was just a civilian, right? I hung around them, but I was never them. That being said, though, but they had respect for me or whatever because I stayed in my lane even with them. That's why they protected me from some stuff. There's some days that I was like, yo, why ain't y'all telling me y'all was going whatever? Yeah, man, shit, we had to run for the popo, blah, blah. We know you ain't about this life anyway, so we ain't tell you. Praise Yah. I ain't get mad at them or whatever. I was like, okay, that's my place. Cool. Like you right. I really ain't about that life. If I had to run, I probably could have outran them. But I'm not about that life. You absolutely right. I ain't want no problems with that. I ain't want to have to do whatever. I ain't want to have to spend no time for something I ain't do. You're absolutely right. Put me in my place. That doesn't mean that I'm a doormat because they come to me for certain things. Right? I told you before, if I go, maybe not anymore as much, but there used to be times I can go to wherever place, like I go Southeast DC, call my mans up, go to Northeast DC, call my mans up. I'm going to certain places that you don't just walk around or whatever, but they know me over there. And they know I stay in my place. When I come there, I'm blessing, I'm doing this, I'm feeding, blah, blah. Maybe I preach a word here or there, just look out for me and look out for whoever coming with me real quick. No problem. We got you, bro. Right? Go to Be More, right? Something going on, somebody messing with my wife, make a couple calls. Yo, like we need to go over there. We might need to handle something. Bring your stuff. Cool, no problem. right? Like I know some of these cats, they respect it, and also some of them have gotten their lives together because I always stayed in my lane. But because I stay in my lane, others do as well. This is a family dynamic. Even in your community, you got to realize for every Judah, for every praiser, for every Levite, for every priest, right? For every Dan, for every judge, there's got to be a Benjamin somewhere, somebody that's ready to fight. You forgot that in the kingdom? There's some brothers on here now who mess around if you want. Mess around with a sister in here if you want. There's some brothers that will get on the plane tonight because they fight. That's that whole try Jesus, not me, because I throw hands, or because I fight, because I throw hands, right? There's some brothers, right? They know what he said about being slapped, but when it comes to him, right? You, right? I'm just saying, but there's some of them mess around if you want, mess around. There's some of them on speed dial right now if they got to. Right, we trying to tell them, hey, bro. Sometimes we've had to tell them, bro, stay in the lane. Don't come out, because they ready. They ravenous wolves. That's what Benjamin was called by his own daddy. That was his blessing. That was what was spoken over him. That was a blessing. That was a blessing that was spoken over. I know you don't think of that, but Israel spoke the blessing over his son Benjamin, the one who he was afraid of losing, like he was afraid of losing Joseph from Rachel, the wife who he really loved, and said, here's the blessing. You will be like a ravenous wolf. We need that. So I'm not saying brothers shouldn't do, but what I'm saying is that in this environment that we've gotten into, that call of even being a ravenous protector has gotten out of place, because now he's not what he used to be, and he doesn't feel like his home is. It doesn't feel like he has shalom. Remember, it even says when you come into the house, when you send out 2 by 2, and you come into somebody's home, greet them with shalom, greet them with peace, give them the greeting of peace. And you say shalom, or you come and say shalom, shalom, etc. And when you come in, and if they don't accept the message of peace, then you leave and you wipe the dust from your feet. Peace is extremely important when you come into a house. Do you hear what I'm saying? Peace is extremely important when it comes to walking into a house, right? And so when a husband comes in, I'm not talking about just a man, I'm not talking about a boyfriend, I'm talking about a kingdom husband, and he comes into the house and there's no peace, he doesn't even feel welcome there. And now this is not righteous, it's not righteous, right? However, he comes into the house and now he yells at his wife, he cusses his wife out, he puts his hands on her, doesn't even recognize that she's helping, because he goes out into the world and he's nothing in the world's eyes. But this is why when you go in the world, never be of it, bro. I don't care what the world says about you. Look, I was a single father in a jacked up place, 3754 Martin Luther King Jr. In Southeast DC, right there where the Air Force Station is, if you know DC, right? And if you go there, I'll give you the address because you can go there and look for yourself. Place where you see chalk outlines from time to time, really small place. There's apartments next to it that are still jacked up places to live, but they at least look like apartments. That place looks like a straight, like a sliver, right? Raising 3 babies in there, sleeping on the couch, having them in there many days, not eating, doing laundry in the tub, hoping that the people pay the water bill so I can do the laundry in the tub so they can have clothes that are clean, but never look quite clean because I can't afford, I can't even afford Tide. Learning how to put plant stuff together to hope that it'll clean the clothes enough to where at least they don't stink when they go to school. Right? I promise you, when you go like that, you start look. I was still diligent. I was still faithful. I was still preaching. I was going to school. I was doing a lot of stuff, but I promise you, it was hard. It was difficult. It was frustrating. Everybody tells you ain't nothing. I praise y'all for babies that just knew love, right? Had to take the babies with me to my classes, prayerfully, because I worked at the school. I couldn't even afford the school I went to, but they would allow me since I helped out to type everything up for them and put together some stuff, I learned some software things. I helped to put their virtual stuff together. This is even before I was even considering to come on social media. I still didn't realize what YouTube was and all that stuff yet. All right. But they still allowed me to put this stuff together. So I was learning how to put together this stuff, even in this type of format. I already kind of knew. So I'd be in the class already knowing what they're going to teach, because I'm putting together, I've already studied the material because I had to put it together in the computer form, and they would let me put my children in the other room. And because it was because it was attached to the school was attached to a church, you would have people in there seeing me struggle and saying, hey, your children want some grapes, they want some this, right? And every once in a while, I know this isn't righteous eating, but it is what it is at the time. Every once in a while, back when the dollar menu was still kind of sort of a thing, I could at least go there and they could have 2 burgers each. And one of them, because they were 4 years old at the time, might not eat the second one. And so then I might be able to scarf down the burger and say that I ate, right? But I'm telling you, even though y'all had me, and even though I was obedient, and even though I was faithful, can I be honest? I felt like a failure every time. I know now I wasn't. That's why I bring that up, because there's a brother going through something similar, and you need to know you're not a failure. But I'm telling you, I wish I had somebody who was speaking in my ear at that moment in time and saying, keep going. I wish I had somebody saying, man, you're awesome. I wish I had somebody saying, look, this environment can change. I wish I had somebody saying, you know how many people in your environment aren't going to school? I wish I had somebody saying in my ear, like, yo, the fact that you and your children will get on the train, go through all this stuff, and then walk 1.5 miles, and they'll walk 1.5 miles with you, getting all this exercise and everything like that, and you guys go so that you can be this intermediate pastor, whatever they call it, intermediate pastor, who's not even going to be the pastor, but is still giving the word, being obedient, doing all the songs, teaching the babies, watching over the adults. You're learning. You're not even 30 years old yet. You're only in your 20s, and you want to be a pastor, but you're not qualified yet, because in our culture, a rabbi is supposed to be 30 years old at least. So I wish I had somebody that was in my ear telling me that the environment is coming. Have faith that the environment change is coming. You've already had an environmental shift. The atmosphere has already shifted in your mind and your pneuma, like we talked about on Apostle Yomi's platform yesterday. The environment has shifted already in your mind. You already have a humble mind, and those who are meek, they shall inherit the earth. It's a faith process. You're already meek. The earth is coming. The inheritance is coming. The people that are going to listen are coming. What you've been called to do is coming. The dreams that you had since you were a child are coming. The traveling's coming. You know you're not supposed to have a 9-to-5. You're more qualified than everybody else who gets the 9-to-5s, and you keep being told you're too qualified, and so they won't give you the money. Right? They won't give you the job. They won't give you an opportunity, but you're doing what others wouldn't do with less. And Yah has you. Don't forget that Yah has you. I wish I had somebody in my ear. I knew it. And Yah would tell me, and the Holy Spirit would remind me, and I'd see it in the word. But I wish I had somebody that was in me, just feeding me that in my ear, just in the side of my ear. Keep going, right? Just like you need a sister every once in a while to come to a younger sister. Some of you older sisters, go to the younger sisters and tell them, you know what? I know they say that you got a baby, and it's out of wedlock, and you just a whore, and they just talk about you like this. But I need you to comprehend. If you keep going, your environment's going to change. Keep holding on to the words. It's like you got to be in their ear. Somebody got to be there to let them know. Keep on going. I know that you got a baby. I know that you got 2 babies. I know you got 5 of them. I know you got a divorce, and it seems like everything's going there. I know the world keeps saying that you have no value, but keep going. The environment's going to change. Your mind is already there. Your mind is already there. Your mind is already there. We're just waiting for the manifestation, but it doesn't manifest if there's no mindset. The manifestation comes out of nowhere, and it comes out of, oh, I felt that. The manifestation comes out of nowhere. The manifestation comes out of nowhere. Are you hearing what I'm saying? The manifestation comes out of nowhere. It manifests because it's in the spirit and goes through the soul, through the nachevash, to get to the physical manifestation, the body. Keep on going, because it's coming out of nowhere. Nobody saw it coming. I didn't see this coming. You're not going to see it coming, but it's coming out of nowhere. My goodness, that's a word for somebody. Somebody need to preach that. Come on, somebody. It's coming out of nowhere. But my mind had to be ready for what was coming, because some of you, God's going to give you the blessing and your mind's not going to be right and you're going to miss it. Here it is. You got the talent. The talent is 200 pounds of gold. You could have doubled up and had 400 pounds of gold and had him say, you've been faithful over a few things, I'll make you a ruler over many. But instead, you were so busy worried about what would happen if you lost it. You didn't have the mentality, the faith to be able to press forward. It's coming. Oh, if I had somebody in my ear back there. I'm not saying I didn't have no support. I'm just saying if I had somebody, if I just had a coach in my ear, if I just had somebody I could listen to, come on, keep it going. Come on, don't worry about it. You know how many brothers out here would just be having sex with all these girls? You know how many women out here are trying to do your daughter's hair because they're trying to get you to lay down, and you caught it, and you sort of look in your daughter's eye that she don't trust them with her daddy, and therefore you didn't do what you were supposed to. You kept doing what you were supposed to do. You didn't lay down. You didn't fall for it. I wish I had somebody that talked to me like that. That's why you got to have community. You got to people who talk like that. See, men are in a position to where we are being mistreated and we're being mishandled, and nobody's saying this stuff. Nobody's giving us credit. So people talking about you want a cookie. It's not great enough. Who cares? I could do this by myself. I could do bad all by myself or whatever, but you're not by yourself. Oh, I wish. I wish I could preach this thing the way I'm feeling. All right. All right. All right, amen. Thank you for the love, appreciate it. All right, how you doing, Roxanne? If I missed anybody on the platforms, forgive me. All right, okay. So now we get to the man where it says that he's feeling this way. And so guess what? Now you keep on reading through Deuteronomy 28, verse 54, 55. And in verse 55, he starts dealing with his children roughly. It even says he'll start to eat his children. Now, it's not literally saying he'll start to actually take the life of his child and do so, right? But it's saying that he'll actually start to cannibalize spiritually. He'll start to, oh, I didn't make it to the NBA. I'm going to train him like he going to make it to the NBA. And I'm going to live vicariously through him, right? It starts to look like, I didn't get respect, so I'm going to make sure that he respects me, and he's going to be everything that I wanted to be. And on top of that, he better man up and do whatever, right? You hear what I'm saying? This is what it looks like. So now the children suffer, like we talked about in the experiment. The pups suffer. Now here come the children. The children suffer. Now watch this though. Then it says the wife of his bosom, the woman who's in the same situation, to where she's captivated. She is under siege as well, and her husband now has stopped protecting her. It says that she has gotten to a place to where the soles of her feet are tender. Tender, by the way, means unprepared as well. So because she doesn't have the covering, she's not really prepared to do what she needs to. And it says she's even tender to the point to where she doesn't want to leave the house. She'll do what she's got to do, but she's afraid to even leave her house because society's not built to make sure that she's protected. Right? Society's not even built to say, where are you as a wife? Where are you as a woman? Where are you as a daughter? How you doing, Darlene? Shalom. And shalom to everybody. If you're coming over from the podcast, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, we appreciate you. Right? She doesn't even feel like she's taken care of. This is what it says, Deuteronomy chapter 28, right? She doesn't want anything outside of the house. Like she don't even want, for real, she wants a husband, but she don't even want to deal with a man or anything outside the house right now because nothing seems to be able to be prepared for her or to help her to feel like she's prepared. Yeah, she doesn't feel safe. Now, we don't take notice of it. We don't acknowledge it, but that's an environment piece. How does she nurture when her nature is to be protected? You said you need to be alone and find who you are and your God be in peace. Well, sure, right? If you're called to be alone, yeah, and everybody should love themselves. I love myself, right? And by the way, in our culture, this is cultural reference. People talking about stuff and bringing up God. God is not even the biblical thing, right? Because God is somebody else's thing. Talking a Germanic way, saying that you could make whatever you want your God. That's why in God we trust. Obelisk, all that stuff, right? People don't know it's a language difference. God in Hebrew is actually just one of the nation, one of the 12 sons, right? Right? You have Dan, what is it? Dan, Naphtali, then God, then Zebulun, right? Those 4 in a row. I think I could be off on that slightly, but God that's what it means in Hebrew. In Hebrew, Elohim is there's only one, right? We don't worship God, right? But people are into other cultures. That being said, yeah, if you want to be alone, if you're called to be alone, sure, be alone. But even while you're alone, fine, learn how to love yourself, right? But there might be somebody who comes along that maybe you're called to have a relationship with, or maybe you decide to have a relationship with. And if you decide to have a relationship with them, then why not make sure that you're doing these things righteous? But yeah, nobody's saying that this means that you can't be alone. Paul was alone. Right? I'm not called to be alone. I'm not designed for that. Hence why I have the greatest wife to ever exist. But if you are in a position where you just want to be alone, and you think that's what the Most High told you, just make sure that's what the Holy Spirit said and not you. But if that's what you want, then be on that. That's your decision, not mine. Right? But even if you're alone and not married, you still shouldn't be alone without anybody else because it's not righteous that man, right? Yahweh Asad La Taba Adam Bad. And bad or bad in Hebrew, B-A-D in Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew, it means to be alone. So the Most High said, what I just quoted was, it's not tabah, it's not moral, it's not righteous, it's the opposite of lawful that Adam would be alone, by himself. Matter of fact, in Hebrew, the word alone, once again, is the term bad or bad. It is bad to be alone. Alone is bad. Bad is alone. So even if you're talking about alone, fine. You mean you don't have somebody to be with, sure, but you're supposed to be community. You out here trying to do the word and do everything by yourself, and then trying to figure out why you having Elijah moments out here. Elijah was a prophet, and sure, he could hear the word and he could be taken care of alone, but he still felt weird and wild, and y'all had to remind him, you're never alone. First of all, because I'm with you. Secondly, because if you look at the situation, there's hundreds that have not bowed their knee. And his not being alone helped him and fueled him to get to a certain point. So if you choose to be alone and by yourself and you don't need, like I heard somebody, was it yesterday? I think I heard somebody going through this whole thing, and I hear a lot of people say this, and I never bought in, but I probably said it kind of sort of like this before. So I've repented, obviously, of this mindset if I was preaching this or teaching this at some point. But I've heard plenty of people, they get up and they go, I'm not even looking for people who have a lot of people. Cool. Okay. Like I'm not looking for somebody because they have a lot of people or because they have a little bit of people. But then they went a step further. And this person was like, matter of fact, Yehoshua, he got rid of the crowd. He didn't want to be around the crowd. And I just kind of was in the comment section, or I wasn't in the comment section. I didn't say anything. I just was listening. And I was like, oh boy, what are we teaching? Right? Because it's supposed to be a family dynamic, number one. But number two, have you forgotten about the Sermon on the Mount? Have you forgotten 2 times that he fed thousands? Have you forgotten that he was around, and sent people out 2 by 2, and that would have been 70? Have you forgotten that it was hundreds that saw him ascend into the heavens in Acts? Right? Have you forgotten that he died for the sins of all, and he didn't, right? Anybody who want to go ahead and come into the kingdom, right? There's something that's there, but the environment this person is in an environment where they're all by themselves, and they must obviously speak or do certain things to keep them all by themselves, or they decided that they want to be all by themselves with no family, no community. So you're looking for people, and you're on this platform that at this point maybe has 6 to 9 people somewhere in between there on. And I'm not saying it's bad for them to have low numbers. No. I've been there, done that. And even if I've been on here and nobody comes on for a minute because TikTok doesn't let anybody know that we're on, I still preach even if it's 2 people on. I preach sermons where nobody's shown up. I preach sermons where it was 2 people, myself and a deacon. I preach sermons where there were thousands there. I preach sermons online. I preach sermons wherever, right? I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is people have an environment where you've been so oft and so put to the side and so alone that now you're sitting up there trying to preach a word saying that Yah's not even looking for crowds and he doesn't want us to grow as a nation. What sense does that make? Matter of fact, the new word that I've been seeing people say is titles don't matter at all. But Elohim is a title. But see, you take somebody out of an environment, right? You put them in the wrong environment, you feed them the wrong thing long enough, you give them enough propaganda even. And then when you're by yourself, you also don't have people that hold you accountable. You see? So when nobody's there to hold you accountable, nobody's there to be like, bruh, where is this going? Like somebody could have been there when he was workshopping this thing. He could have been workshopping it with a friend, and there should have been somebody to say, nah, that ain't it. That ain't it. Like the words, whatever. There should have been somebody to say. There could have been somebody, but no, I'm not looking for the crowd. I go the opposite of the crowd. If there's only 5 people around, then I look for that. Well, don't just only be focused on that, but be focused on where you're led by the Spirit. And then watch this. Try the Spirit by the Spirit. That's how we affectionately say it. Or test every spirit to see if it is of Elohim. Right? But you got people, but what happened is what? Your environment, because you're not into nation building and you're used to having 75 churches on one block, right? On one street, and all of the churches, except for maybe 2 or 3 of them, are struggling because they can't financially make it. And rather than come together as a unit, you make sure you stay separate. So since you make sure you stay separate, you're used to having a separate mentality. So therefore you think having a small church is better than having a big church, or having a big church is better than having a small church, or having a medium-sized church is better, or having a pastor that preaches like this is better, whatever. When the reality is that you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, so that you can see that when they're preaching the word, are they actually preaching the word, or are they preaching themselves? If they're preaching themselves, then let's go. Let's get out of there. If they're preaching the word, then let's go. Let's get in there. But there should be a nation that's coming together. Anybody that's nation building, I'm gonna give you a second thought. Even if you're not in the kingdom, as far as even if you don't believe what I believe, right? Because there's a lot of people that say they believe what I believe, but they're not trying to make sure that all of us come together, right? If you're apostolic and I'm not, but you want to make sure that people eat in the community, let's get together. But you say they followed the Messiah and it blessed the spirit, and when he found out about John being beheaded, sorry, excuse me, about to burn my device. But yeah, right. If you are a Methodist, right? I'm not a Christian, but if you're a Methodist and you want to make the community better, let's get it. Let's find out the methodology. If you want to make sure many people are baptized and make sure they come into the word, then let's get it, Baptist. If you want to make sure that that Jehovah is pleased and we make sure we give his word out, they would never do it, but let's get a Jehovah's Witness. There's a lot of people that are Israel and that say that they are Israel and they're not. There's a lot of our brothers and sisters who swear up and down that they got this word. They can teach it to you. And they can tell you the Torah. They can tell you the scrolls. They're Marat this. They're Rabbi this. They're Deacon this. They're Officer this. They're all this stuff. And I promise you, they won't work with your community because you don't make sure that you bow down to their belief system. And the crowd ministers to your hush, right? This whole thing. So you see what I'm saying? The environment, be careful. The environment for a lot of people, not for a lot of people, for everybody, the environment that you're in is your teacher. Straight up. The environment that you are in, it is your teacher. It is the thing that is instructing you on how you're going to move ahead and move forward. And a lot of us, when we're not moving forward, especially together, it's because we've been in an environment to where that's not necessary. It is not necessary to move in an environment because you've been by yourself for so long. Many of you needed help long time ago and finally started admitting that you needed help a couple months ago because you've been in an environment so long that you wouldn't trust somebody enough to say, let's move together. You've been under siege. You haven't had time to raise these babies right. That's why you got to send them to school. If we had it set up, why wouldn't a mother want to raise her children and make sure that they're taught at home? And a father make sure he has extra opportunity to teach them and preach to them and make sure they get stuff at home? Why would we want to be in an environment to where side hustles, not to make ends meet, side hustles to survive, right? People have side hustles, right? Not to enjoy life, not to be like, okay, I got a little extra. I'm gonna go ahead and do the side hustle for 6 months, and I'm gonna take a 1 month break, and my family and I we're gonna vacation for 2 weeks. People got side hustles because they trying to make it. That's sad. And we have, wasn't there some sister on here who said, who was like, if you got enough time for Netflix, you got enough time for a side hustle, saying that basically, brothers, you better get off your butt and make yourself, worth me taking my time to get to or whatever. Like somebody was talking about earlier, that broke boy mentality, or nobody wants a broke boy. You don't want a sister like that because look, my responsibility is to make sure that I love my wife. How much you think I'm gonna love my wife if I'm always gone? I'm not saying, brothers, if you working and you working hard, you got that job, do what you need to do. I was there, right? That's why I got the effects of a hernia still to this day. I was doing what I had to do until finally y'all said, okay, I got you, right? Okay. I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm not saying even in your personal business you're trying to start, don't work hard. What I'm saying is, though, the goal is not to work yourself to death. They put you in an environment to where you think it's about working yourself to death. That rat race. Then they put you in the rat race and you limping through the rat race and you can't make it through. And then they say, see, you don't even do this. Y'all don't even live as long as everybody else. You guys are not as healthy, blah, blah, whatever. We weren't put in the proper environment. And I'm here to tell somebody, we just finished the reparation stuff for those who are part of SOC University. So if you're part of SOC University, we just finished doing reparations. We're gonna start doing some stuff on Hebrew characters today. Praise Yah, and get back into that and add some stuff and start putting some words together. But hear me and hear me well, fam. Hear me and hear me well. You're going to have to realize that they're not going to give you the environment. They're not going to give you reparations. I'm not going to get through the whole spiel because obviously, first of all, we have lessons. Secondly, I can't teach reparations in one day, right? But when you look at reparations, the United Nations, not Kofi, right? The United Nations says that there's 5 things that are necessary for reparations. And that's why you're going to need self-reparations. Your community is going to have to repair itself, not REPAIR, but REPARE, repair rations, right? That AR is different than that AI. What's the difference? Well, if it's PAIR, that just means 2, right? which I don't know why they still use that repair to say they're fixing something. That's odd, right? But anyways, or repair, P-A-R-E, means to cut, to redistribute, to recut, right? Even my name, Kofi, is actually Kwavai in the Paleo Hebrew, and it actually means Kwav, or what we call Kof, is the first character of it. It actually literally means to cut and to prepare. The Vav means that so that I can nail the family in place and nail something in place, or something would be nailed in place. And then Ayin at the end is saying that I can see different, or I have different countenance. That's my calling, even through my name, through my authority. That's how I see the world, right? And so I recognize in what my calling is that you're going to have to repair, you're going to have to cut it different. And in reparations, there's 5 parts of reparations, right? Number 1 is cessation. That means you have to cease. You have to cease what you were doing. Number 1. Number 2 in reparations is repatriation and restitution. That means we have to either give you the land back we took, we have to give you some of the land we have, or we have to take you back to the land that you were taken from and give you restitution. Right? Self-explanatory. Number 3 in that then is compensation. Whatever resources we took and made money off of, we got to give you the money back. How can Britain say that they have given any kind of reparations, right, to like Benin Dynasty and others, and yet you still make money off of their stuff in museums? Right? That means that you're still okay with making money off the stuff. There has been no cessation, ceasing, all right? And you didn't put it back where it goes. That's even part of repatriation, if we want to be honest. Repatriation and restitution, give it back. And therefore, you have not given proper compensation. Number 4 on the list is then satisfaction, which means that we shouldn't necessarily be the only people. That's why you need an arbitrator. We shouldn't, the other side should be represented to a certain degree, because we don't want to become the people that just rob them blind and say, okay, you made us poor, so we're just going to make you guys poor. I know some people are like, well, F them, I don't care, right? But I'm just saying that's not lawful. That being said, though, satisfaction means we should be satisfied. We should be able to walk away and say, you did this to us, you did that to us. We've learned about who we are. We've learned this, we've learned that, we've grown. We know this is how stuff operates. This is how we're going to have our stuff go. And when we are compensated, this is what is satisfactory to us. And then number 5 on the list gets to a place where then you have to go into I'm forgetting number 5, y'all. I'm sorry. I might have to look it up on Patreon real quick. What is that? Number 5 is, I'm forgetting number 5. Is re something. Give me a second. I got to go on Patreon. I can't believe I missed this. Let me see what we have on there. We just did this lesson last night. I don't know why I'm struggling with this. Oh, I can't see it because it's locked for SOC University. It's not repatriation. That's not the last thing. It's re something. I need to go through our personal account. I'm sorry. I can't leave that alone. I was going to try to leave it there. I got to go. I got to find this now. Patreon. Let's see. What was our last one? I'm glad to see it works like that, though. So if you're not paying for it, you can't see it. So at least I'm glad that it does work. I didn't know that it was working like that. Okay. Oh, rehabilitation. There we go. Sorry. Last one is rehabilitation. Sorry, y'all. All right. So rehabilitation. If you're gonna give us cessation, stop what you're doing. Repatriation and restitution, right? Send us back with stuff. Compensation, you should make sure we're properly compensated. Satisfaction, you should make sure we're satisfied. And then, of course, make sure that there's and I forgot it again that fast. Rehabilitation. There should be rehabilitation. We have to go through a process of learning, growing. And by the way, when you look up even rehabilitation, they tell you it's medically, it's psychologically as well. And I would say spiritually, but once again, this is why self-reparations is important. I wouldn't worry about the person who's enslaved you all this time and took you away from who you are. I wouldn't worry about them then turning around and being your spiritual guide. Maybe give us room to spiritually rehabilitate, but I wouldn't worry about them being the person that's going to fix things, This doesn't really make sense. You hear what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't realize, what's really going on. Even the United Nations would tell you, yeah, what you think reparations is it's not really, it's not really possible, feasible. Because also too, for reparations to happen, it means that ultimately the country would have to fall. Like for example, why is it that France still exists? France is a poor nation. You would say France is not poor. First of all, you only think about Paris or Paris. You don't think about the country, right? But France is not poor. Or France, that's what you'll say. France is not poor. Problem with that is, though, is that the only thing that keeps France alive is all the places that they colonized still pay them reparations. It's interesting that people would say reparations is not a thing that anybody should do, but if it wasn't for others still giving to you so that you would let them be free, that's what happened with a lot of these places. The places that became free had to pay their way out. Haiti is the only one that didn't, and then ultimately the world came together and forced them to pay France, and then CIA came through, and then the Clinton Foundation and the Red Cross, and now they've got all these plants and all this stuff over going on there where they're just going to have it to where they're going to break the whole country apart and just get all the resources and tell you that it's too war torn. Haiti is basically a place where everybody just comes to take still. It's still a slave colony. And the Dominican that's right across the way, even though they're our brothers and sisters and they swear they're not, they keep looking sideways at us and they're not even telling you the truth that they started doing a lot of that to the Dominicans over there too. But the Dominicans are considered to be white and they've shook hands with the devil, so to speak. And I don't mean the white man, I mean these specific white men that are doing what they're doing. Okay. But these things are necessary. And so you're not gonna make it through this rat race. I don't care how much they say, well, we'll give you a scholarship. We gave you, matter of fact, what was it? The thing that they got rid of? Affirmative action. Affirmative action was never fair, not towards us. Oh, yes, it was. Matter of fact, it was unfair to us because it gave you an unfair advantage. You're telling me that if you got a B or a C and I got A's, I can't get into a school? And they did all this stuff to get rid of it. And they'll tell you it's a white man that got rid of it, and yada, yada, yada. But guess who they used to get rid of affirmative action? Guess who hated affirmative action the most? It was the people who benefited from it the most. Who do you think benefited from affirmative action the most? I hear you, freedmen. Yeah, give us that money they're giving the Ukrainians. Not only that, but the hotels and then the land and then all that, like they did, during the great time of the Statue of Liberty, where everybody was going to the island and coming in and stuff, and nobody talks about what MLK started talking about when they took his life. But who do you think? Who do you think benefited the most from affirmative action? White women. Amen. Right? And they were the ones that fought it the most because they were upset that they weren't getting it all. And so it was that fervor was used to light a fire to get rid of affirmative action. Black people, so-called blacks, so-called Negroes, so-called Native Americans, so-called indigenous, so-called uh, um, minorities, whatever, so-called American Indians, they did not benefit the most from affirmative action. And even with some of that, I mean, do you want to go through what a $5 Indian is, or do you want to go through what actually counts as being black? How much percentage do you need to be black? Is it a one-drop rule? Like, I mean, are you married to somebody that's black? I mean, we can go through the particulars, right? But we didn't. And when everybody gives you this whole thing in history, as far as see, historically, we've given you time after time after time, and it's unfair. See how we done? But affirmative action wasn't used by us; it was used by you. And then you got rid of it because you couldn't have it 100%. It wasn't that it wasn't helping people; it was that you weren't being helped 100%. Just like there's contracts now, we have SOC members that get government contracts and all that, and have to fight and fight and fight and fight, and they'll tell them that they got a contract, but then they don't tell them, read the fine print. We might not hire you for anything. We just need to have to say that we, said that we have people who are black on here. So we'll say that you're black on here, but we don't have to pay you. We don't have to actually say we'll come to you for the stuff. Now you can present stuff to us. We'll even have you be part of the meetings and everything, but we don't have to pay you a dime because we never have to have you show up on a project. I mean, that's real. But they still trying to get you in the mindset of affirmative action, as if that was ever really truly beneficial. When you said I really think it was harmful to give jobs to unqualified people, no matter your skin color. Um, sure. Once again, if somebody has a B in something and somebody has an A, are they unqualified? Or if two people have an A and one person's black and one person's white and somebody says you got to give it to them because they're black, are they unqualified? How about this? Nepotism. Does nepotism mean that somebody's unqualified? We're making the mindset that everybody who got something under affirmative action was unqualified. Sure, we could say that, but there's a lot of people who have nepotism and their children are not qualified, but you still give them the stuff. Now, my son is going to deal with nepotism, but he's going to be qualified. He's going to have he's got an EIN. He got the YouTube channel. He's got stuff going together. He's learning his stuff. He's learning his Hebrew. He's learning certain things. So when he follows after his father's footsteps, he should be more than qualified. And that's if he's even called. The Holy Spirit is ultimately going to determine, and give me the mindset and show me, yes, he is in fact going to be somebody who's going to do yada, 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 yada. Right? But yeah, but it is a dangerous precedent, sure, but it happens all the time. So even if that's part of the process, as far as affirmative action, we have to kind of throw that. I'm talking about a specific. I know maybe you're saying overall. I'm saying even specifically with affirmative action, maybe we got to toss that to the side, because how many people keep getting jobs out here who are definitely underqualified? How many presidents have been qualified? I know everybody wants to act like it. Ronald Reagan, by your standard, if you're an American citizen, I'm a non-citizen national, but those of you who are American citizens, Ronald Reagan was not qualified to be president. Look at Ronald Reagan's background. Tell me his qualification, right? Look, President Obama was not qualified to be the president of the United States, according to your standard. He's not qualified. But people say, no, all you got to do is just be this age and blah, blah, and that's it. And be an American citizen, that's it. Be 35, right? 35, American citizen, and that's, right? He wasn't qualified. Obama ain't had no experience. That's why a lot of stuff went the way it did. Trump wasn't qualified. He had no experience. Joe Biden's actually more qualified. He just ditzy. But all of them, none of them are qualified, because none of them care about you if that's what you think it is. But the corporation of the United States is not supposed to take care of you. We don't even know what the qualifications are. And by the way, Reagan and Trump both ran on the same thing: make America great again. So if people who voted for Reagan, who now are a generation, just about 36 years, but almost 40 years, a generation removed, and they're having nostalgia given to them because we need to make America great again. If Reagan wasn't qualified the first time to make America great again, then Reagan Light is not going to be qualified to make it great again either. You see what I'm saying? But we don't comprehend what's being done. The environment that even these people that were put in made them put blinders on and say, even though we didn't succeed in making America great again, we'll do it this time with somebody who's not as great as the first one, who wasn't qualified the first time. You said Obama was one of the best lawyers at Harvard? Sure. Does that mean that he had the experience to run a nation? I mean, Obama was nice. Obama had decorum, I guess you would say. Obama looked great in suits. Obama also had more people deal with the stuff than Trump did on the border, right? He was worse to the people on the border. Obama killed more people with drones than Trump did, or did Bush did, even though you could say Bush didn't have the technology yet. Obama is somebody who was actually really bad with African politics, even though that's part of what he was in there for. Obama didn't have the experience. Obama was somebody who was more of a liar. Obama would have his wife dancing on Ellen DeGeneres show to talk about how we need to make sure that children have healthy lunches and everything. We're celebrating it. Meanwhile, he's signing stuff on the back end that nobody cares about, where he's saying that you don't even have to say what's in the food or if the food is real food. I mean, so I get it. I'm not saying none of these guys are not smart or intelligent at all. I'm not saying they weren't groomed, but I'm saying if you want to talk about actually qualified by your standards and what you guys say are qualified in these corporate things, because the United States, by law, 28 USC 3002 15 subsection A, the United States is a corporation, right? And he's on top of the board because 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B says the United States is a board. That's why he's president, vice president, secretary, and all that. And he's going to help the publicly trade thing, because according to 28 USC means United States Code, 28 USC 3002 15 subsection C, that this corporation that is also has a board on it has instrumentalization, negotiable instruments, publicly traded, and you're the ones publicly traded. Then if he's going to be doing these things, and therefore you are a share, you don't even just have shares. Some of you own shares in the United States corporation, but you are a share. So as a share, are you allowed to speak up? Probably not, I guess, because you're property. But if you own any shares in what you think is America, right? Just because you own debt in America doesn't mean you own shares. It doesn't mean they care about what you think. But according to your standards, right? When is it best to have somebody that has no experience or very little experience, just because they have a degree, take over for somebody who's been working for the corporation for 20, 30 years. Thank you, Minister Shante. I'm just saying. That's not by the way, I don't vote because I know that voting's not biblical. I have a king. I'm not yeah, I definitely won't do that. 40 for president, praise God. That made me laugh. I'm not trying to say what you said as a joke, literally. Whenever people said that in the past, and I'm like, ooh, that's crazy. But you see what I'm saying? It's so all these presidents set precedents. Right? George Washington wasn't even the president. George Washington, I mean, he was the 9th president. Y'all call him the 1st. But technically, George Washington wasn't even the president. He was a dictator. How do we know this? Because nobody voted against George Washington. Can I say that again? You keep talking about it as a democracy, which, by the way, the word democracy is not in your Constitution. Might I cite this again? George Washington, nobody voted against George Washington. Not a one. If you go to another country, if you were to say in Papa Doc's country, they had elections and 80-something%, 90-something% voted for him, you would say, oh, that's because he was a dictator. If you were to look at Idi Amin said that everybody voted for him and it was free elections and everybody voted. And right, if you were to go to North Korea and say everybody keeps voting in our fearless God, our fearless leader, you would say that's a dictator. If you went to Pot or Pol Pot or whatever his name is, and you said everybody seemed to be voting him in, they had free elections, they had real elections, you would say, no, somebody's a dictator in that. All of a sudden with George Washington, it was 100% vote, and there was no, because the environment we were taught in told us that George Washington can't even tell a lie. He chopped down a cherry tree, and when his father came home and asked him about it, he said, Father, I cannot tell a lie. I would never lie. I would never do anything. I mean, I'll grow up and I'll marry this woman who passes for black, who already doesn't like being considered to be black, and I'll marry her because she has what is it, 70%, or if we put ourselves together, maybe 80-20, 70-30, something like that, slaves. So I'll take her property and I'll take her land and I'll put this stuff together and I'll become richer and stuff. And I'll, get develop syphilis because I'm out here sleeping with all the other blacker slaves, while I have this passion for white slave. And I'll eat candy to where my teeth, that's probably how he would have said it. I'll eat candy to where my teeth fall out of my mouth, and then I'll just rip the teeth out of my slaves' mouths. But I'll give them, pennies for their teeth. I'll give them stuff that is meaningless to where they can't buy freedom or anything. So it's obviously I'm not paying real stuff what their tooth is worth. And I'll go ahead and we'll make up different things. And then in the last contraption, I'll say, see, I had these ivory teeth. So I never took slaves' teeth out. And we'll teach that even at Mount Vernon, which is a lie, which is not the truth. Because the environment we were taught in says we got to look at it. Oh, if they were Republican, they're a Democrat. The environment we were taught in. But if the right wing of the bird and the left wing of the bird are still attached to the same talons that dig into your back when they scoop down and strike and break your spine, either way, it's the same bird, right? The environment that we're raising. So now this is what needs to happen. Their experiment only does the white lab rat in the great environment, the dull rat in the not so great environment, or the terrible environment, the evil environment, if you will. We need to recognize that we can't be part of the experiment. Right? And I'm not attacking anybody. You said they wanted George Washington to be elected king, and he said no, just saying. Sure. Okay. They have no kings in America. They have a corporation in America. So, Warren Buffett is not a king. He just tells the president what to do. Elon Musk is not a king. He just tells the president what to do. You can call it whatever title you want. And by the way, even with him not being a king, George Washington still did the things that he did. So sure, if that's what we want to focus on, I get you. Granted. So I'm not saying that George Washington, I'm not saying that even people that do evil can't do anything righteous. George Washington probably loved his children. He would tell you he loved his wife, even though when he was in war, right? When he was during the Revolutionary War, which was really a civil war, but during the Revolutionary War, that's what we're going to call it, and they became Americans, right? Because the original American is an indigenous copper-colored person to the Americas. But nevertheless, when they became Americans and he fought, when he was the general before he was the president. What else? Wow, why am I forgetting this? Not the general of the army. Why am I forgetting this? Not chief of staff. What is his title? He is not only the president, but he is when we go to war, he's considered to be even though he doesn't get to say when we go to war, Congress does. But he is why am I forgetting this? Whatever his title is, the British had the same title that he had. I can't believe I'm forgetting this title. This is like right in front of my brain. No, not the general, commander in chief. Thank you. I was trying to say chief of staff, commander in chief. So when he was the commander in chief in Britain, which he fought for the British, right? He was a British soldier, and he would show up during their revolutionary talks, if you will, their meetings, and he would show up in his revolutionary gear. But it wasn't revolutionary gear yet. He showed up in his British gear, right? And he showed up dressed up as an officer, and he was trying to tell him that he should be the commander in chief. Now, the way it works with the British is that wherever the British went all over the world, they had armies, and whoever was over the army was the commander in chief of that area. The commander in chief not only was in charge, but he also would literally sleep with his officers' wives. That was the thing, right? So George Washington was already sleeping around on his wife. So I get that there's this whole thing, and what we're taught is, oh yeah, and George Washington, he left because he was so upset with what happened with Congress, and he was never really in charge. And then when he finally came through, he was going to do this and blah blah, and he left. But we also forget, like when George Washington died of syphilis, then that whole obelisk thing is resurrected because of it. When you go to the Osiris story and you look at it, and you have Columbia on top, Washington District of Columbia with Osiris, Isis with wings and all that, and everything coming out Heru, which is just a religious thought bubble when you go to the National Mall. But even going before that, when he dies and they're headed towards his house, what is his wife doing? You remember what his wife is doing when they send him to the house? They find out that George Washington is dead, probably because she sent word, or she sent slaves to send word or whatever. And then when they find out that he's dead, what do? What is she doing when they show up at his house? Anybody recall that? Right? His children wouldn't have been doing anything. His children die, right? But he dies of syphilis because of all those women that he's been doing stuff with and all this stuff. And he just left, and he could remain president. That's something else that he teach you. He could have just kept being president, but no, they didn't like George Washington. He left because his first term, everybody was like, cool, George Washington, we've been told you're the hero, this and that or whatever. Second term, they were like, you better do better this time. And by the end of the second term, they were already like, bro, you got to go. But we're taught, oh yeah, he could have just kept being president. He could have been president for life. No, not true. But once again, when they found out he was dead, they sent word is sent. They're on their way over there. When they find George Washington's wife, what is he doing? Or what is she doing? She throwing away all them files and all this stuff and a lot of evidence and a lot of Masonic stuff. They caught her. They said that. They tell you. They showed up to the wife, and they show up to the house. His wife is throwing everything in the fireplace. There's a lot of stuff about George Washington we don't even know. But in Mount Vernon, it's clean. And in Mount Vernon, they'll tell you, oh yeah, he was a pious man and this and that or whatever. He was so great, right? If you go to Mount Vernon, not read, go to Mount Vernon, and the people that are there, they'll tell you. They're paid to tell you, like, oh yeah, this and that or whatever. You said there's some governments left in today's time that are real monarchy government. Yeah, most definitely. You said that's when Adams took control. Well, yeah, Adams worked for George Washington. Adams, who they'll say, by the way, was never a slave owner, but you can't be in the White House unless you own slaves. George Washington never got in the White House. He just got Virginia and Maryland to give, even though they paid for it, to give land to make the territory and make it a plantation. The White House was a house that was bid on. Matter of fact, that's why when Thomas Jefferson gets in there, he makes some type of additions to it, right? Because he ended up losing. He was second. Somebody else actually built the White House, right? And George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, is it Monroe, Madison, out of those first 5 founding fathers, and John Adams worked for one of them. So he also worked for one of these, but all of them were Virginia slave owners. Go look at their plantations that are still places you can go to look at and worship them today, and you'll see very clearly what the environment was. and what it's supposed to be. And even you'll look at, we just talked about James Madison not too long ago. I still got to put this on Patreon to make it go with the lesson that we gave. But don't forget that James Madison was out here telling you, yeah, this whole thing about democracy, not really down with it. It's a mobocracy. Just to say that the majority rule don't mean nothing anyways, because the majority rule doesn't mean it's righteous. But the only way we're going to get this ultimately, and I got to get at it, I got to take my leave now because we got to get ready for Apostle Yomi's platform at 11. So if you want to come on, I would say once again, maybe give it 11:05-ish. Last time, I don't even think we started till like 11:15, 11:20 because he was having issues with the signal. But if you come on about 11:05 a.m., if you look for us live again, I'm going to disappear and then I'll be right back on TikTok only. We'll post the stuff later. Maybe next week or maybe Saturday, Sunday, something like that. We'll post the recordings, but it'll be on TikTok only. So if you want to come back in and join us for that, you are more than welcome to. But I'm going to get ready to take our leave. But I'll just leave with this. At the end of all that we just talked about today, guess what we need to do? We need to make sure that we are looking at our sovereignty and that we're not part of this experiment. And they have one that's a great environment for them. They have a bad environment for us. And then they have a rat race for us to go through. If we're going to, but all we have to do is say, you know what, we'll just have an environment over here. Revelation 12 tells you that Israel must separate anyways. Psalms 122 verses 2 and 3 tells you that Israel is supposed to become a compact nation and come together, and that we should stand within the gates of Yahashalallam, within Jerusalem. This stuff has already been provided and said and shown what needs to be done. If we're gonna do what is righteous, which means just basically a working definition for righteousness is right lawful standing, that we need to recognize kingdom law, marital law, universal law, natural law, substantive law, common law, law of first mention, law of attraction, law of equity, maritime law, public law, private law, which by the way, public law is just beast law, and private law is when you have the right to go outside of the beast. So these are things that we must recognize and we must get to, and we must look at a higher level. That being said, thank you all for being on. I appreciate you. I'm gonna go ahead and give us a little break just in case some of you want to come with us and support, or just come with us and listen in with Prophet Yomi's platform, which I've been asked to go and speak on today. We're still speaking on humility. And so we will have it recorded for you, and it will be out on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, not only today's, but yesterday's message. And we'll play it by ear how it's going to work today. But if you want to come on with us, like I said, it's supposed to start at 11. I would give it to like 11:05 or so. Usually by then, the live session has started. He's usually coming from Nigeria. So they've been having some signal issues there. So sometimes he's able to start, sometimes he's not. But it should be there, even if it doesn't start around 11:05. Yesterday, I think we were on by about 11:15, 11:20. But you guys be safe. You have a great day. Thank you so much. Don't forget this is Community Day. So if you can, go out and be a blessing to somebody in your community, whether it be the diaspora or somewhere else. Be led in your giving. I'll be on this evening. Patreon family, we've been posting, so please make sure that you're on there. I think we got a little thing going schedule-wise, so where we can make sure now we keep hitting it. We've been doing pretty well. And SOC University, we finished our reparations classes yesterday, so we'll start again on the Hebrew character stuff, but we're going to focus more on the words, right? We do have lessons on it that actually teach the Hebrew characters. We will do a review on the Hebrew characters, but at this point, I'm led more so to just we're going to start focusing on the words. Tomorrow, we'll be on live, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. Then at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time, we'll do a podcast for Shabbat service. At 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, we'll have Shabbat school for the babies. At 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, we'll have our SOC community meeting. We do need you to be on Clapper. I'll try to see if I can be on TikTok simultaneously, but I can't guarantee that. So if you can join us for Clapper. And then right after that, we're going to try and go into our watch party. Okay. So if you are able to, if you'd like to, we appreciate you. If you'd like to be able to go ahead and be part of those things, join us for that. And don't forget, brothers, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern New York time, we'll have our men's meeting. Okay. Thank you again. We honor you. We appreciate you. We look forward to talking with you all. And we look forward to continuing to learn and to grow. Our next holy day is going to be June 16th. I will have information by this evening and possibly tomorrow. Specifics on October 17th to the 24th, which is when we're going to be doing our Feast of Tabernacles. And I should have more specifics on our Makeup Passover event and when we'll be doing that live for those of you who missed the first one. All right. So thank you. We appreciate you. We honor you. We hope you take care. Hopefully this lesson hit you where you needed to and you got something out of it. By the way, if you're with us on TikTok for the first time, if you want to come from the other platforms and come on TikTok, thank everybody once again for coming on from the podcast, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We appreciate you. If you want to come over to TikTok, we're getting ready to do our shout out. If you've never done a shout out with us before, we'll explain how that works. And by the way, it's going to be a quick shout out because I'm already running out of time. So we'll try to do what we can in a very quick amount of time and then get ready for Apostle Yomi's platform. And we thank everybody for being on. We appreciate you. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Thank you, everybody, for being on again. Hopefully, we'll see you on the live session, 11:05 or something like that. And once again, if you're coming on TikTok to look for us, just wait for my avatar, my picture to blink. And when it does, you can click on it. You should be able to join us live right then and there. Okay. Thank you again. We honor you. Appreciate you. Take care, SOC fam. Pray for us on our travels. We're praying for you. And hopefully we'll be back where we need to be by like the 12th or the 13th. So just keep us in prayer. I'm sorry. Yeah, the 12th or the 13th. So just keep us in prayer. And we love you guys. Hopefully you have a great day. Hopefully we'll see you this evening. And hopefully we'll see some of you in a little bit. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. Until next time, remember that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Take care. Peace. Early Shabbat Shalom to you if I don't see you this evening. Otherwise, Shai Shalom to you. For those of you who are still on TikTok with us, the shout out's going to be really quick and really brief. But this is how it works. When the music begins to play, if you don't mind, please